Stands to like pulling when you go for children's open day and other such things. Baba Nani, could you please? Hiya.
Bus.
You look around. Okay, you realize your child is the one who has that name.
There's nobody else.
Yeah, so
this must be you.
Kuja useme mawili matatu.
Mawili matatu.
I know there's always that you feel when you're the one who is the MC or the person who's leading this ceremony, you feel that it's important to recognize some people in the crowd.
Now that one.
It's important to recognize them. It's important, where you can't just sit here and Baba Nani is sitting there, and all of you know that you look up to Baba Nani and you don't give him an opportunity. If you don't, people will be saying, "I know you're mtu bwana. Anaharakisha program."
Yes.
Hata hataki watu waongee.
And you know something? All these people who speak, if you actually pay attention to what they're saying, they're all saying the same thing.
They're saying the same thing.
So as not to repeat what the previous speaker has just said, then
Yes,
they
then you
proceed
just
to
go,
repeat it almost word for word.
You insist on the same. Anyway. So, welcome to the show. We will be discussing very many things. Of course, we saw what was happening in the Senate yesterday. We also know that today the United Nations will be conducting a vote to admit some non-permanent members to the Security Council. Kenya is on the ballot. We are not prepared to accept the results should they not go our way.
Already.
Just so they know.
As going in knowing this.
Just so they know. If they don't go our way, we are going to appeal.
Again.
Yes. Yeah. And then, of course, we will be talking about other things, including speaking to a judge of the Children's Court who has worked very hard over many years in advancing justice for minors and children. Yep. Hiya. But we start from where we always start. COVID-19 in numbers for Kenya. Where are we today? These numbers are even no longer being published like on the front pages of the newspapers.
Right. It's no longer an issue. You have to now look for it where it is.
This is on page 2 of the Standard. Okay.
You have to look for those numbers. Right, so Kenya is sniffing 4,000 at 3,860 cases. This is what Kenya has at the moment, with 105 deaths and recovered cases of 1,328. And things just, like you said, it's become old news now, something that kind of, is going to come out at some point. 133 new cases yesterday. All right. And it's interesting because every time the news bulletin is coming out or whenever the announcements from Afia House are coming or wherever they're going to have them in whatever county, people are just saying, okay, get on with it. Let's just know how many new cases there are today. And that's all we're interested in hearing. And we move on. So I don't know if it's lethargy or...
The initial days when Mutahi Kagwe would come and say 20 new cases and the whole country would be like,
what?
20?
Is it you?
20.
Could it be you?
Now there's 133.
How many? 100? Okay, no problem.
All right.
And then you even hear people saying 200. Maybe by next week we'll be at 200.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like I think. I don't know if it's lethargy or people are just,
It isn't lethargy. Even if it had reached 1,000, believe me, it is...
We'll get to a point where it becomes no more news.
People accept that people are going to die. And once they get there, there is nothing that you are going to say that's really going to shock them.
No, we'll deal with it. When it comes, we deal with it, and when we move on.
In Brazil, they're dealing with it.
Thoroughly.
1,000 people died yesterday. Okay, how many?
Let's bury them.
Have we reached 1,500? Okay.
And we move on.
And where did they die? Okay.
No problem.
We move on.
Brazil is almost at 1 million cases. Meanwhile,
1 million people.
928,834 cases so far.
How many active? Okay, how many dead so far?
45,456. So they're looking at about 5% death rate compared to the population of infections. But this is ridiculous because 2 weeks ago they were at half this number. 2 weeks. Here we're saying 133 cases.
Yep.
In 2 weeks, they've had 450,000 new cases. Do the math.
Hey. Okay.
The United States is at 2,208,400 cases with 119,132 deaths. We see that the numbers continue to rise. On Sunday, these deaths were at 111,000. Today is Wednesday. The deaths are at 119,000. 8,000 deaths in 3 days. This is something, guys. And we also understand that the protests continue to take place around the United States. Social distance, physical distance, out the window. That is just not even an issue anymore. Spring came. They're going into the summer months. Everybody wants to go to the beach. People are tired of being locked indoors. All these other things notwithstanding, people are out and about. And the scientists and specialists and experts are asking people to take caution. But unfortunately, caution has already been thrown to the wind, and it's not happening. So we're likely, yes, I do think, just from all indications, that a second wave is imminent and already opening up in some parts. Mexico, 4,599 cases in the last 7 hours with 730 deaths. So they're doing well over 10%. Now, very close to 20% of the new cases are resulting in death in Mexico, and those numbers are rising rapidly. China now has 44 new cases. Yesterday, we saw the cases at 40, where they talk about cluster transmission, and this is increasing because the number of cases that are being found in Beijing are now almost 100, whereby there was 0. So in the last 6 hours, here as well, 44 new cases. So over the last 2 days, almost 100 new cases in China, whereas which was seen as something that they had eliminated over the last 1 month. South Africa now has 76,334 cases with 1,625 deaths. The testing continues. The death toll, not so staggering, not so alarming. Though we say that one death is one too many. They seem to have a handle on this in terms of how they're working it. Bolivia, Guatemala, and Honduras still continue to take what we see as hits because of their geography. Okay, so this is what we continue to see. Equatorial Guinea now is a country whereby this was silent for a long period of time. But then one of the countries in Africa that we see now, in the last 6 hours, they've recorded 358 new cases with 20 deaths. So just under 10% is what they've realized here. And it's an eyebrow-raising affair, apparently, because it is not because of random or mass testing. It was because of targeted testing, and they find that now actually community transmission happened a while ago. And so now they're picking up on people having been infected, and some of these cases are unfortunately resulting in death because they're quite advanced.
Okay.
So Equatorial Guinea is one to watch here. And its neighbors. In terms of then what would happen. Because in terms of lockdown, just looking at what they enforced, nothing major really happened. It was just kind of like, okay, well, we'll do a little testing here and there.
Whatever happens.
And it's happening now.
Hey, okay. But still 0 deaths in Rwanda, Uganda.
Yes, still 0 deaths in Rwanda and Uganda. Let's look at those numbers. In Uganda, the cases that we see now are 724 new cases in total with 0 deaths. Still, whatever they did and the measures that we've looked at that they really did enforce did make a difference in terms of how they've been able to handle all of this. Rwanda's cases are at 636. We saw a time where Uganda's cases were much less than those of Rwanda. They stayed at about 100 for a very long time, but then they continued testing, and we see now that those numbers have risen, and so they're carrying a little under 200 cases more than Rwanda. But then Rwanda has recognized 2 deaths or realized 2 deaths, but still, I mean, less than half of 1% of those cases have resulted in death in Rwanda.
Okay. It's important to note here that Tanzania, the president addressed parliament yesterday, and he announced that schools are going to reopen soon. All schools will reopen, and all the other restrictive measures that they're taken, they're going to start relaxing them.
Yeah.
They had, for example, stopped mass gatherings, stopped entertainment at pubs or even sporting activities. Now those ones are going to resume, and the president says because of the measures that we've taken and because of the success that we have seen in our fight against COVID-19, let's relax these measures and continue. And I urge the Tanzanians to continue observing the measures that we've been given by our experts.
Fight against COVID-19.
Yep.
This same COVID that doesn't exist.
Yeah. It's because they fought it that now they have seen.
They want to make sure that it doesn't come back.
Okay.
They have been successful. Remember, they closed schools. But all these things that we talk about Tanzania, they actually had taken some measures. It often sounds like they had done nothing.
They had taken measures.
They had taken measures and they were testing.
Eric, it's the pronouncements that have been published that make us have this interesting view. Because if at the same time you hear that after 3 days of prayer, COVID has vanished, you wonder and you say, hey, okay. So what happened to the measures? Because they started off by taking measures.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, the measures seem to have gone out of the window.
Yep, it's the measures and a combination of prayers.
Yeah, it's a combination of measures and prayers that made it disappear.
Yep.
I mean,
this thing will not be fought just by measures. It's not by might.
Continue.
Not by power.
I swear, Eric, today.
But by the
spirit of the loud, man. If you don't pray, shaurienu. And he keeps saying, you guys lock down your country.
But you should pray. If you pray, you will see.
Yeah.
Divine intervention is what is necessary. And
Okay.
they've done it.
Nataka maombi. It's 6:15. Let's take a look at the weather and then we start the conversation looking at newspaper headlines. I'll also be telling you how you can win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. If you dial *550*2# for only 20 shillings, you'll be able to read the Standard newspaper this morning and every day. Good morning.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Clear skies when the sun does come up in Nairobi today at 14 degrees. We will see highs of 22 and lows of 12 with showers forecasted for the later part of the day. All right, let's take a look then in Nyeri where it's mostly cloudy at 13, highs of 21 with showers in the afternoon. Moving on west to Nakuru, thunderstorms have been indicated for the afternoon with highs of 22 and in Eldoret at 19 the high. We will see thunderstorms here as well. It's likely to be a wet afternoon in Kisumu. Highs of 27 and lows of 18. And in Kakamega at 16 degrees currently, partly cloudy conditions that'll close up later then with highs of 24 and lows of 15 with showers coming down for most parts of the day. In Malindi at 26 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 25 with showers throughout the afternoon. Mombasa will follow in the same line, 25 degrees currently, highs of 28 and lows of 24. All right, in Kampala at 20 degrees, we'll see partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 25 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam is clear this morning at 22. It'll continue in fine fashion, highs of 31. Taking a look then into Johannesburg, the sun has disappeared today officially and it's cloudy at 4 degrees. Rain coming in later with highs of 10 and lows of -1. And in Lagos, it's clear skies at 27. It'll change later, though, with highs of 28 and lows of 23, with showers through most parts of the day. Let's take a look in Paris, where it's 15 degrees and partly cloudy. It'll change later, with thunderstorms forecasted for the rest of the day, well into the night, with highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's clear skies in London at 4 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 14, with showers expected in the afternoon. It's still Tuesday night in New York. It's clear skies, however, and when the sun does shine on Wednesday, it'll be 25 degrees high and lows of 16.
Spicing up your morning with Kenya's biggest conversation. This is a Situation Room. We are live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke, also on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 21 minutes after 6. Here's a chance for you to win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Now, you've got your Safaricom mobile phone. Just dial star 550 star 2 hash, star 550 star 2 hash. If you have 20 bob worth of airtime on your phone, you'll be able to read the Standard newspaper. That's what? Star 5? Say?
I was trying star 5. I just heard many
star
stars.
550
Okay.
star 2 hash.
Got it.
Say?
Star 550 star 2 hash.
Yes. That's all you need on a daily basis, and you get to read the Standard newspaper, all right? So this one you don't need to download at go to the App Store, download the app, get to sign up, no sign-up fee, no sign-up details required. Even if you don't have data, as long as you have 20 bob airtime on your phone, that's all you need. Basically what you're saying is the Standard is, you can buy the Standard for 20 bob every day, okay? Now, if you'd like to win 1,000 shillings worth of airtime, there's a story on page 8 of the Standard today. And this story is talking about a woman who has been appointed by KDF to a senior role in a joint unit. Now, I would like you to read that story on page 8 of the Standard and tell us the name of this woman and her rank. That's it. Her name and her rank. It's on page 8 of the Standard. It's a woman who has been named to a senior role in a joint unit by the Kenya Defence Forces. Call between now and 7 o'clock and you stand a chance of winning 1,000 shillings worth of airtime. 0719-012-600. CT Muga. What is today's proverb?
Today's proverb is actually a Swahili proverb.
All right.
It's one of the simplest and easiest to understand proverbs I've actually ever come across. Akili ni mali.
This akili is very many things. Today we are dealing with the mali part of it.
Akili ni mali.
Okay.
So, is it wealth? Because wisdom is hekima. So, akili is knowledge, know-how, is wealth.
If you have this, you have this.
Mali is wealth.
Akili is...
Mali.
Okay. Got it.
Mali is wealth.
Got
Okay, it's a country, but in Swahili, Mali is wealth. All right. Headlines in the papers today, Ndu?
Okay, so there's a lot going on. If we want to start with the Standard today. Okay. CBA shocker. The TSC is actually now going to slash the salaries of thousands of teachers next month. The Teacher Service Commission opens an audit to identify tutors awarded a pay rise that they were not entitled to, and who will be required to refund the extra money paid to them over the last 3 years. Do you see drama ensuing here?
Kizungu Mkuti. So,
Okay, so let me just give you the details, right? Some tutors have been taking home huge pay after the database wrongly elevated them to higher grades. They were so teachers who irregularly gained from higher salaries in the last 3 years under the 54 billion shilling pay rise will have the additional money recovered starting July the 1st. It has emerged that the data used to reward some teachers in management positions was not properly captured, leading to overpayment. Those to be affected are senior teachers, deputy head teachers, and head teachers who were irregularly elevated to those positions during the 27 data capture by the TSC county directors. The directors presented the data before the rollout of the 2017-2021 collective bargaining agreements, the CBA, signed between the commission and the teachers' unions. According to TSC Executive Officer Nancy Masharia, it has been established that some of you provided inaccurate and misleading data leading to erroneous conversions.
Sasa. Hey. So, the teachers were going to the TSC officers in their counties.
Yes.
And they were giving this information. County directors of education. Sindio?
Yes.
These are the people who we've been talking about all the time, that are the ones who are in charge of ensuring that there's quality of education, ensuring that teachers are working, ensuring that everything that's supposed to be happening
Is happening
in education is happening in their regions.
Yes.
So they went and captured the wrong data, entered the wrong data, and for 3 years, somebody has been earning money that they...
Can we start with they were given the wrong data, which they entered?
But
Given.
it's their own data.
Given.
It's your own information.
Given. We can start with that. And I have a conspiracy here.
Oh, here we go.
Given was not just the data that were given. They captured wrong data, but they were not given the data. They were given something else.
That thing is...
See, you know. You know.
Once upon a time, there was a country called Kenya.
Now, this is where the unfortunate things start happening, by the way, because you're saying that for 3 years you've been operating on erroneous data, which was captured by your own officers, and then you're coming to somebody and saying, you know, City, the data that I have of you here and has given you something that you're not entitled to. So we are going to take back this money that has been paid to you erroneously for the last 3 years.
And you
By
start,
recovering means that we start deducting extra
Yes.
from your salary. First of all, we take your salary to where it should have been, and then we start recovering by deducting. This is going to be fireworks.
Oh, it's going to be crazy. I mean, for 3 years, you didn't figure out that this
It's
was
your
a problem.
mistake.
It's your mistake. It was
As
in,
far
it
as
was
I'm
in the
concerned,
system.
I did not give any wrong data.
It was in the system. It was accepted at some point, and the system that is authorized by human being, not robots or extraterrestrial creature, it was approved. Every month when this payment is going forth, it's not automatic. Somebody appends their signature and says, we would assume that they're looking through the figures and they say, yes, this is correct. Carry on, pay. 3 years, 36 months, over time. It was fine, authorized, go. Then suddenly, out of the blue, poof, you can even see the smoke. Somebody realizes, hold on a minute. This is not right. Across the country, not 1, 2, 3.
What
everybody.
I'm asking is, how do they know this information is wrong? What is it? Are we informed of that in the paper? What informed them?
Yeah, how did they discover
Yes,
that
it is wrong, and how then did they determine that this information was actually not right?
Nope, it does not say how they found this out.
So the information could very well be right.
It just emerged.
Things don't
Kind
just-
of like how,
don't
things emerge
just
from the sea.
emerge.
Dragons
It's
emerge
like
from the
it just
sea.
rained, no?
Yeah, dragons emerge from the sea, mystical creatures, things like that happen.
That's where dragons come from.
Sometimes. But anyway, let's not go to Alice in Wonderland for now. But this is what it's telling us. that
think-
it emerged.
I think the issue is, so there was an audit, and then you realize that somebody who should have been in certain job group was moved to a wrong job group.
Okay, so here's what it says. Those who were in job group H were moved to C1, equivalent to job group J. All senior teachers who were between job group G to K were moved to C2. That's like a 3-level jump, right? Equivalent to job group K. All deputy head teachers in GL. Oh, now this is the strange thing. That it's not just a couple, so you'd have said there was a glitch, but it was everybody. They were moved
Now, this is
to
what was
C-
supposed to have happened. This basically, in the new grading, I think this is explaining what the grading was doing. So probably somebody who was not supposed to have moved to C1 was moved to C1, or somebody who was not supposed to have been moved to this C2 was moved to...
This is what I'm saying. If this is the way it was supposed to be, how it was tailored to be, it just happened that now if you did not fall into this and you were not supposed to be, you then were.
Yeah.
So it looks as though it was just lifted and moved. That's what it looks like. So if you presented your information, because would you go and present wrong information, Eric Latif, supposedly G?
Yes, people
It's
can.
possible
then-
that
People can.
Everybody, though.
not everybody.
Yeah.
It's many.
So-
it's a number of people. You see, and that's why I'm talking about collusion here. If, for example, you are the director of education in this particular county, ideally you should know your officers, right, working in this area. And you should have ways and means of checking that, are you a headmaster? So if you're a headmaster and you're currently in job group G, then now I'm moving you to this one and I'm entering that in the database. If the officers who are taking this initial information, plus who was checking that information at that point, plus others, I mean, this information should have been checked. The point here is, it's possible for somebody to have come and looked and seen there's a lot of confusion. You don't even know me. You don't even know what's happening in this. I just come and tell you I'm a headmaster.
You know,
Can take advantage of the system.
when you talk about entering that sort of data, you are right. It isn't as though I wake up and I just go and tell you this is the data. No. You're often asked to
check it.
to come with evidence.
Yes. You
Nancy
will come with
Macharia
evidence.
says you are required to carefully study the list and identify teachers who were not correctly placed or not performing administrative functions, yet their names appear as such in the database. So this is something that required checking with regularity.
It's not that difficult either.
Yeah, it isn't. It's
Like
not
you're saying.
difficult.
How many head teachers does the school have?
Surely.
Like you're saying, I mean, you'll come with evidence. You'll come with your pay slip. You'll come with evidence to show this is your job group. This is where you fall. And then this person enters this information, not just because of word of mouth.
Every time you are moved from one job group to the other, there is documentation from the Teacher Service Commission or wherever it is that shows that you have actually moved. You don't just move and it's silent and it's only you who knows. No, there's documentation.
It's only you who knows.
Yeah.
No, of course not. Because it affects quite a number of things.
Which can be forged.
You
Yeah.
are written to.
Yeah, somebody writes you a letter. It goes to the individuals who are dealing with your remuneration. It deals with so many other things that other
Remember,
people then have
by
to
the
sign
time
off
that
against.
information is entered into the system, there's a lot of paperwork that will have taken place.
Yep.
Or computer work now, okay? Doing this, it's passed here, it's verified. So, if you are going to blame, it can't be an individual you are blaming.
Oh, no.
It's a system.
As Eric put it, there are very many people in that queue.
And I think the people who should be held accountable for this are not the teachers who benefited.
Nope.
It is the officers who did not do their job thoroughly.
But now those are the people who are going to suffer in this case. Those who've
Yeah.
been receiving this money for the
The
last
directors are the ones
months.
who should be
I would
surcharged.
take the question even further. How do we know they've been receiving the money?
So the money was paid. They have now they have records of money that was paid
It
out.
goes into
every
your
month.
account.
It goes to your account. It left their account.
They know it entered your account.
Well,
There's evidence.
They sent
Yeah.
it. They sent it. It didn't
Well,
come back
none
to
of
their
these people
account.
has complained that they haven't received their
The
salary.
salary.
You see, there's a point I'm getting at here, okay? Given where we are once upon a time,
All right. Okay. There was a story. Okay.
yeah, there's a story. People have been known, when you hear of ghost workers,
Yeah.
what do you think this is all about? When you hear of people who died and who
And they
are-
still receive.
and they still receiving, and they're not few. Now, the former municipal councils were replete with stories of ghost workers. People who retired 20 years ago, but they're still on the payroll. How do you think that happens?
Yeah.
It's, as Eric put it, a systems issue.
And it's a deliberate manipulation of the system by human beings.
And when they're paid, where do you think that money goes to? Or who has access to wherever it is that the money goes to?
It is not the relatives of the dead person. There's actually a dead person. Somebody who used to work for this authority, but they passed away. But their name remains in the system, not the family that benefits from it.
No. And then you're told they have a bloated workforce. If they're clever enough to ensure the money goes to a certain account which they have access to, what makes you think it's beyond them to do what
they're doing here?
Yes.
I see your point, City. It's possible that actually we're not talking about actual teachers here.
No.
So who are they going to recover it from? There's the question.
Shock upon shock.
You know,
who will they recover it from?
You know, this particular story has just come out.
Yeah.
Let it unfold further.
You will see. You will hear things.
Definitely. Definitely.
Tales will emerge.
Oh, yes. This, you know...
25 minutes to 7. Just take a breather, City.
Yes.
Let's take a look at traffic. The conversation continues. Good morning.
All right. On the Eastern Bypass today is where we already have traffic around about 6:40. And this is going a little bit crazy already. It's moving, but it's Well, very, very slow. Let's see how that is an option to get to Thika Road on the round side and then coming onto Mombasa Road from the other. Mombasa Road, though, not too bad at the moment. It's moving very well all the way from Kitengela and then towards the JKIA turnoff. Not much of an issue right now, but we know that it's going to get worse, so you need to brace yourselves. Buckle up, as what we will see will probably be some traffic for about an hour or so. If you've left early, you're not going to get stuck in all of this. I'm right around Dandoro. We saw some issues yesterday, and Outer Ring. It's not so terrible right now. You can move on Jogo Road towards the City Stadium roundabout and then into the CBD. It's flowing very smoothly this morning, so not much of an issue right now. 3 accidents already experienced on Thika Road this morning. What is going on? That's the question. It's tailed back as far back as Safari Park Hotel. That's where we see the traffic. So if you're going to join that, please be careful. The service lanes can be used for now, and it's not moving as slowly as the main highway. All right, we'll take a look at what it looks like in a short while. Right around. Tell us what you see. Spice of MKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's share this information, guys. It's already looking a bit crazy right now.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. So you have 20 minutes to
Spice FM, Malindi.
You've got your Safaricom mobile phone. Would you like to read the Standard newspaper on your phone?
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Just dial star 550 star 25. That is star 550.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
When the SMS comes, it'll come with a link. So you just click on that link and it opens the newspaper for you. And you just read the paper as it is from page 1 to the last page. Today, the newspaper has 48 pages. Now, for you to win this 1,000 shillings worth of airtime, there's a story on page 8 of today's Standard, which says KDF names a woman to a senior role in joint unit. The Kenya Defence Forces has named a female officer has appointed a female officer as the Foreign Liaison Officer of the Combined Joint Task Force, Horn of Africa. This task force originated under Operation Enduring Freedom, Horn of Africa, as part of the U.S. response to the September 11, 2001 attacks. This is a KDF officer, the first one to be appointed to this role. We'd like you to read that story and call in and tell us what is the name of this officer and what is her rank. What is the name of this female KDF officer? What's her rank? Page 8 of the Standard, 0719 012 600. You've got 18 minutes to do this. Other headlines in the papers today.
Chinese exodus begins. We saw last week that there was an outcry from quite a number of Chinese nationals resident in the country saying that they were not happy with the measures that Kenya had taken to fight COVID-19. So they would rather go home. And so there were 400 of them, and they were saying, you know what, better sooner rather than later, they would like to then go back to China. And so they were asking the government to make these arrangements for this to happen.
Okay.
And so there were talks then that were happening.
Which government?
Kenya.
And theirs.
GOK. And their own GOC. Okay? So they, like I said, there were 400 of them.
Yep.
So today, the first flight with 200 Chinese citizens on board was set to depart. It was supposed to depart Nairobi last night, and they are fleeing Kenya for fear of COVID-19. So they're saying, look here, the way you guys are handling this thing, we don't want to get caught up in the middle. And the government will evacuate the Chinese government will evacuate 400 of its nationals. And the first batch, having left yesterday at 11 p.m., the evacuees procured their tickets on Sunday night. But because of the social distancing rule, all could not fit in the China Southern Airlines plane. The remaining 200 will leave in the course of the week, according to their lawyer, Isaac Okinyo. We were expecting all of them to leave at once, but considering the social distance rule and the new sitting arrangements, that they could not leave at once. The final arrangements, he said, were made after the Ministry of Foreign Affairs gave the lawyer the go-ahead to evacuate his clients.
I've got to call out the nation. This is the story on the nation. The slant of this story is trying to be negative. It's trying to paint that this Chinese are thinking that this country is, has gone up in flames. It's not managing COVID-19 and therefore we want to flee. The Chinese nationals are not the only people who have left this country.
No, they're not.
Kenyans have also left other countries to come to Kenya. Now, the ones who've come, we have seen them arriving here and going to quarantine. They've left Paris, they've left the UK, they've left America. Those that have come home, is it because that those countries were not handling COVID-19 well and therefore they wanted to go? Come on. I mean, if people want to go home, let them go home. That's it. When we had the issue of Wuhan, and we even called in the government spokesman, and we had Kenyans, relatives, even going and camping to government offices and saying, we'd like you to facilitate the evacuation of the Kenyans, students and workers in Wuhan who are under lockdown in Wuhan. We'd like them to come back home. Was that because China was not handling the case? No, it's because you just want to be closer to your relatives. I think the story is okay. The slant of the story is what is trying to paint a wrong picture.
The departure may have very little to do with COVID per se. It may have to do with the commercial effects of COVID.
Yep.
The Chinese who are here didn't come here to be farmers. They're business people.
Yep.
And if there's one thing that has suffered profoundly, it's businesses.
Yep.
So if you came here to eke a different or a better living, and that is proving to be almost impossible, why should you stay?
Yeah.
It's true. It was also stated that the Chinese are claiming that Kenya's health system couldn't or cannot handle huge infection numbers if the pandemic spreads rapidly. They argued that they have a better chance of treatment in China, as Kenya does not have enough health facilities and equipment to manage the coronavirus
And
patients.
that is true.
They have underlying conditions, okay? And others just don't feel safe. And this is, again, according to their lawyer, Mr. Okinyo. The isolation centers are full. Testing and contact tracing is a big deal to the Kenya government. So they felt that it was better then for them to, access these facilities at home.
Okay, let's take a pause a bit and speak to Edwin Langat, who's calling in from Nakuru. He'd like to answer this question. Good morning, Edwin.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing today?
I'm very fine.
You'd like to try my challenge this morning for accessing the standard on your mobile phone?
Yes, I would like to try it.
Okay. So what is the name of this KDF officer and what's her rank?
Rhoda Mansika, rank is colonel.
Rhoda
Mansika,
and the rank is?
colonel.
Okay. No, you don't get it right. This is not right, actually. You read the story again, get the rank right, and get the name right. You're close, but not there yet, Edwin.
Okay, yes. Let me try to read
Try again. Thank you. 0719-012-600. What's the name of this KDF, senior KDF female officer who's been named into a senior role in a joint unit between Kenya and U.S. forces? This is the Operation Enduring Freedom Horn of Africa. She has been named as the Foreign Liaison Officer of the Combined Joint Task Force. What's the name of the female officer and what's her rank? It's on page 8 of the Standard and the headline is KDF names woman to senior role in joint unit. 0719-012-600, 1,000 bob worth of Safaricom airtime. So back to the Chinese and wanting to go home.
They want to go home.
Okay.
So 2 of them have left. 200 of them have left.
Wish them
The
all
other
the best.
200 will go.
If you recall, at the very beginning of the acknowledgement of the pandemic in this country, many nations were evacuating their citizens. And that's what they did.
Yeah, even now, it's just that they're being silent about it. The British continue to evacuate. The French continue to evacuate. And it's not just in Kenya either.
So why is it
Kenya
that
is still evacuating. There is a flight that's coming out of London. Is it next week? That's going to bring Kenyans.
So why is it suddenly that when the Chinese want to leave Kenya, when they want to take a step that very many people are taking right around the world, this particular lawyer does he have any knowledge of other Chinese in other parts of the world and what it is that they're doing? Eric, you're right. This story is slanted.
It's trying to create a very wrong impression that the Chinese are whatever the impression is. But anyway, so Kenya is on the brink of World Power Seat. Kenya is on the brink of the World Power Seat. That's a headline in today's Nation this morning. For the Africa seat at the UN Security Council, Kenya is competing against Djibouti, a country it beat 3 times at the African Union endorsement vote last year, but which stuck it in the race, challenging the validity of the election. So, Kenya has been really campaigning to join the UN Security Council as a non-permanent member, right? And it rotates around regions. So this time, Africa, Kenya wants to be the one that sits there. The vote is going to take place this afternoon, Kenyan time, 4 p.m. Nairobi time. Kenya has been campaigning for this. Kenya got the endorsement of the African Union. It was campaigning alongside Djibouti. Kenya beat Djibouti once, twice, thrice. Djibouti is still sitting there. No, I will not accept this result. I'm going
It's okay.
to continue campaigning.
They're not boarding, are they?
They're not boarding.
No. It'll be interesting to see how that all turns out, of course.
You're looking at me like wondering, so what's the importance of this?
Yeah, I'm
Sitting in the
thinking,
UN
okay,
Security
you
Council.
are a non...
Permanent member, so you don't have a veto vote either.
You just sit there.
You
Sit
just
there.
sit. You
You sit and observe.
You attend them. You're allowed to attend the meetings.
Yes,
Okay.
your presence is noted, but that's just it, really. If you want to look at, in terms of decisions, affirming...
You cannot give...
No, you can't.
No
In terms
opinion.
of affirming
You can
or
give
denying, you
opinion.
can give opinions,
You
but
can
in
vote.
terms of you
the
can
thing
vote,
is, you can also vote. The only thing you cannot do is you cannot veto.
you don't have veto power. As a non-permanent member of the Security Council, you have no veto power.
Veto would be nice.
The veto is nice, right?
But it also allows you basically to play the political games up there.
Right.
On one vote, you can actually, side with the Chinese, knowing fully well that you're, sticking a finger up the Americans, or you can cross the other side, depending on who's gonna.
On how you feel a particular day, hey. It's nice because you can play in the playground, right? You just don't decide who then will uproot the monkey bars.
I've actually wondered what it is that were the requirements or the qualifications that one was required to have in order to be even considered.
The Security Council.
It would be nice to know.
Africa as a whole has 1 seat.
Yes, but
yeah.
even as Africans, someone can declare that they would like to represent the continent.
Yes.
Yeah, but then what do they look for? What must you have in order to be considered?
What are the minimums?
Well, there's certain things that they do consider. I mean, you're looking at, following the rule of law in terms of governance and things like that. Generally, that your corruption index is not, through the roof, and that you don't have.
You're not one of the
you don't
countries
have
that's likely to be sanctioned by the UN Security Council.
That you're not facing or would not face any kind of sanctions in the near future. That you're not, dealing with rampant human rights atrocities and such. That you're not in a state of conflict, and that you don't know how to deal. I mean, those are the things that they generally look for, and that you're upholding, little things like the Geneva Conventions and such.
Then I can see.
So be clean. Now, Djibouti has a strong... Remember, Djibouti hosts how many military bases for various parts of the world? The French are in Djibouti. The Chinese are in Djibouti.
The Americans are in Djibouti.
Djibouti.
They do. But how is it that they're so poverty-stricken?
The Djiboutians.
Yes, they are.
Sasa sioni mambo ingine mingi.
Because I think with so many bases, I would have assumed that some there'd be
Over
some
time, that they start,
the trickle-down effects. Yes.
Just to probably,
Yep.
I think you have you
Governance,
see that
they've
this
had the
goes
same
towards
president
individuals.
for a while.
I asked this. I look at Kenya and the time when we got the American base. And then we had others, say, for instance, in Manda. That is in Lamu. Now, what that does, it guarantees us, should I say, intelligence that ordinarily we wouldn't have. Okay? But when we also have a naval base in Manda. Okay? What it means again is that we are able to access infrastructure and a certain quality of security measures that ordinarily would not be able, meaning there are some attendant benefits.
Yep.
Now, the question you want to ask is, how does Djibouti benefit
from all these bases being
Yes,
there.
I have to ask. But that's perhaps a question for another day.
It's true.
We wish ourselves all the best on this vote this afternoon.
Yeah, good luck with that.
And we hope that the IEBC opens the servers so we can see who has voted where. And if they don't, we shall know who. Anyway, senior Kenyans who've been leading this campaign.
What is saying, Ndo?
I have a story. I know, Eric.
Okay, go.
I'm just not understanding, but okay. An airstrip has been turned into a brothel as the country stares at a corona wave. Okay. The old Busia airstrip is now a holding zone for truck drivers awaiting COVID-19 tests. But at night, alcohol, sex, and food are in constant supply. In the good old days, politicians, government officials, traders, and rich wheeler dealers flew in and out of Busia airstrip often. Although it was not fenced off, allowing locals who had built their homes around it to stroll in to view the arrivals and departures of the mighty and rich, it still enjoyed its moments, but not anymore. Today, the airstrip resembles a crowded scrapyard where every space is packed with humongous trailers. The airstrip could soon become a hotspot of the coronavirus after the government, due to lack of trailer parking space in Busia, directed truckers to keep their heavy commercial vehicles at the facility. Today, there are at least 200 trailers parked at the airstrip. The directive to park the trailers at the airstrip appeared to have been a blessing in disguise to some residents. Many enterprising locals have put up makeshift structures to sell food to the truckers during the night. The food is given to the truckers by vendors who collect money afterwards. In some instances, it is just women selling tea and chapati and are paid instantly. However, when night strikes, nocturnal flesh peddling takes over as twilight girls and women swoop into the airstrip for opportunity to make quick cash, turning the yard into an open-air brothel. Commercial
So
sex
what's happening
workers
here?
we have
Basically,
established are
this-
having a field day servicing their captive clients.
Okay.
This is what you'd expect, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah. What happens in the lorry towns?
Yeah, we know. I mean, we know those are hotspots for
Remember,
commercial sex
bars-
workers.
There
we know
you
that
go.
already.
Bars are still closed, remember? And of course, the sale of alcohol in bars is what is prohibited. Is there anywhere where you are
You can consume alcohol anywhere else.
precisely? And that's what they're doing.
And then
And other
you can
things.
also, the sex workers, if you're not able to access them in the other lorry towns,
You
look
go
where the
they
business
are.
is.
First of all, if you have 200 lorries stationary, surely if you're in that line of business, does it not indicate to you very, very clearly that this is the place to be?
It's business. It's a business decision. Straightforward. It's just
These are customers. They are not going to leave here on that same day.
They'll be
Yeah.
here tomorrow.
Yes,
And the
exactly.
day after.
Yes.
this is what you expect anyway. Let's take this caller. We have a couple of callers who are calling in. Good morning, Peter in Mombasa.
How are you, sir?
We're fine, thank you. How are you?
Fine.
I assume you're calling to try out this standard newspaper question.
Sure.
The name of the KDF woman who's been appointed to a senior role in a joint unit.
She's Rhoda Mosingwa,
What's her rank?
Foreign Liaison Officer.
No. The rank in the military. General, captain.
Wow.
No? Is she a
No,
captain?
I'm not sure.
Is she a brigadier?
Yes,
Not sure.
They're not sure.
All right, let's try. Kennedy Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very, very fine. What about you in Nairobi?
Tuko salama kabisa. What's the name of this senior KDF officer?
The lady is called Rhoda Masigwa, Lieutenant Colonel Rhoda Masigwa.
Lieutenant Colonel Rhoda Mosigwa.
Yes.
You're very right, Kennedy Nakuru. Congratulations.
Yes.
You will get 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime.
Yes.
Was it easy for you to just dial in on star
No,
550
very,
star?
Very, very easy, and I would encourage Kenyans to do so.
All
The
right.
contemporary society.
Asante sana. Well done and congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Stay on the
Thank you.
line. Speak to our producer, John, who will take your details.
Okay.
Well, that's it. *550 *2 hash, and just 20 shillings you get to read the Standard newspaper on your mobile phone. You don't need to download an app. You don't need to sign up any forms. You don't need to have any data bundles. You just need to have 20 shillings worth of airtime on your phone, and that's it. Basically, you're buying the Standard newspaper, the entire newspaper, for 20 bob, and you can read it on your phone, and it's available for you today, and you can read it even tomorrow if you'd like to. So as we conclude this conversation about the truckers and what's happening in Busia, and everybody who has seen the business opportunity, people who are selling food, people who are selling drinks, people who are selling anything else that they sell, normal life.
It carries
But
on.
there's a bigger story here on the delays that basically are happening there at the border. Let's maybe cross this over into the next hour. Today's Proverb City.
Akili ni mali.
Akili ni mali.
Simple.
Yeah. So anybody who's taking advantage in Busia, they have this. You know the way people say, uko na hii.
You know, the questions that we should ask are many.
Uh,
Why is there a delay?
yeah.
Why aren't they? I mean, there are many questions.
Well, was there no lorry park in the first place?
And the report from
And you
some
know
of the,
very well that there are trucks that will be coming here crossing into Uganda.
and the
It's what
drivers
happens
have
on a
clearly
daily
indicated,
basis.
as one was quoted, that there's no police presence.
Anyway, good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Right, let's see how it made the change this morning. Not so much on Thika Road. It is quite crazy already, bumper to bumper. And this is all the way from the Safari Park Hotel leading towards the Utali Drift. Gone are the days of no traffic on our roads. Everything is now back to traffic drama as usual. All right, we're going to take a look at Jogo Road, where it's bumper to bumper all the way from Hamza, leading then towards the City Stadium roundabout and then on to either industrial area or the city center from there. It's going to take a little bit of time this morning, but it's not too terrible from what we see. The usual hold-up on Mombasa Road right around Cabanas will take you to about General Motors, and then you should be fine after that. We are hoping and praying that we will not see any more accidents this morning like we did yesterday. It was a bit of madness, and that the SGR will experience cars flowing by in fantastic fashion. But we will look and let you know. Let us know also what you see. Spice FMKE. Reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
Let's close that conversation over and start asking the other questions, right? So, because of the COVID-19 measures being implemented at the border, we are seeing delays in truckers being processed to cross over into Uganda, right? This is delay in business. This is a cost to business. Number one. Number two, for a long time, this is not a new border point, a new border crossing. This has always been known that Busia is where trucks are going to cross over into Uganda. There's one side in Kenya, one side in Uganda. So when you get to a point where we see this kind of congestion, and either trucks are, on the highway for kilometers, 20 kilometers or more, or where now trucks are being directed to go into an airstrip, and this is where now we have a lorry park, that tells you about our planning. There's an issue there of why don't we have proper truck handling facilities in Busia. Then there's the issue of now what's happening here in this particular airstrip. So when these people are told to go to that airstrip, they're basically told, you go and live there on your own, do as you wish. The issue of curfew at night, you want to stay up all night, shauri yenu. The issue of mingling, shauri yenu. Whatever happens there, shauri yenu. Like you're saying, CT, this truck driver called Daniel Awindi is quoted here saying, it's business as usual here at night. There's no police officer to control movements and mingling between drivers and sex workers.
Tip of the iceberg here, because we are having a problem with the issue of the Naivasha being a terminal for cargo.
Yep.
It's not, Uganda has written a letter, but Rwanda has a problem, DRC has a problem. And the problem is they feel that this isn't the most efficient or the most cost-friendly way of doing business. Because they themselves, over time, these countries that I speak of, have gotten their own way, meaning their own clearing agents. So goods leave the port and there's transport waiting for it. Yes, and it can go directly to wherever it is that they want to. Now, what I find strange, this is something which we're doing, like something that, again, uniquely we do very well. We move back. We turn back time and we turn back the clock.
How?
But this is the way things have been for the longest time. The only problem was we complained all these heavy transport vehicles messed up our roads. Okay? Now, we are now saying that this is what the Ugandans are doing because they feel this business of putting things on the railway. And then it goes up to Naivasha. You know, when it goes up to Naivasha, then you load it onto the
truck.
Yes. All these pits and stops have a cost element to it, whether you like it or not. And also there's the element of delay. Now,
but it has reduced the number of days that a truck would have taken, for example, from Mombasa, between Mombasa and getting to the Naivasha, just the Naivasha junction.
Eric,
let's even call it 2 days.
That's a different discussion. Surely somebody who has imported goods from your port, can they not be given the option of transporting things the way they want? That's really my argument. Because remember, we are in business with our neighbors. They use our port to bring in their goods.
And they don't do it for free either.
No, this is what they would like. This is what they would like you to do. And secondly, even with the efficiency of the railway, the good thing about a railway is that you don't have to stop.
There's not...
And there's no traffic jam.
Anywhere.
There's nothing.
The thing leaves Mombasa.
And it just moves.
Let's even give it 8 hours. It's in Naivasha.
It is.
8 hours, that truck will be somewhere in Mtwande.
The problem with the SGR is the cost of transporting things is very directly connected to the loan repayment that we are tied with regarding SGR. Now, so long as that remains in force,
it makes it expensive.
It makes it uncompetitive. That is a good word to use. It makes it uncompetitive.
It would be interesting to speak to some of the people who are involved in this business. Then they can tell us, how much are you being charged by the company that's operating the railway for transporting the goods between Mombasa and Naivasha? And how much does it normally cost you for doing the same on road, right? The truck, the driver allowances, the fuel, everything else, the amount of time taken, everything else. Compare those two costs, and then we see which one is cheaper.
Remember, Eric, that with what the government has been proposing with regards to SGR, even before we started talking of Naivasha, it meant that if you want to do any clearing, you actually have to come to Nairobi. That was the situation then. Now, what it means is all those offices that had been opened in Mombasa for doing this very same thing, there's what you call now relocation of business.
Right. Yep.
That comes the cost. Let's put it this way. There are very many things that perhaps require straightening out. Yes. And what we are seeing are not just the teething problems, but some of the issues that perhaps haven't clearly been ironed out. Because I am assuming that by the time Naivasha was being proposed as a depot, as a port, all these other contending or related issues had also been resolved. And that we had discussed these things with the neighbors to the point where we were in some agreement. After all, we do charge them for bringing cargo through our port. Yes, it's a business. And they also do have an alternative. It's called Dar es Salaam.
True.
Yes. So
all these things should have been factored in, and also the businesses that operate in this sector should also have looked at things and seen this is where the world, so to speak, is going. From the very beginning, when it was proposed that there's going to be an inland container depot, a dry port being created in Naivasha, this was very clear. A dry port being created in Naivasha means that we are going to decongest the port of Mombasa by having all the goods that are going on transit from there going to be processed in Naivasha. It was very clear. So if you're a processor and you've been doing the job of processing, then you needed to start thinking of how you shall move with that business to Naivasha. If you haven't, okay, even you, Bana, you have some questions to answer. However, at the same time, because we know how our government operates, right? It's possible that all these things were done, but no proper talks, no proper timelines were given. So you know that, yes, there's going to be a dry port coming up in Naivasha, but you don't know when it's going to be operational. You don't know when you expect it to start working. So you cannot start moving people to Naivasha. You can't start moving your operations to Naivasha if you don't even have a timeline for when Naivasha will start being operational. Then suddenly the CS goes to Naivasha and says, from next week, we are doing this.
I mean, honestly.
It's followed by now him going to Parliament to ask Parliament for approval. Parliament gave that approval yesterday. That now, okay, this operation can happen in Naivasha. But
are they ready?
That's the
They're
thing.
not ready.
That's the thing. You'll find many of these things is just because the government has been operating just like that without communicating.
Willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly. Your word.
You know, Eric, what is also of interest, and this one perhaps, in my opinion, is really what is significant. In making this decision, remember, when you talk of transport at the coastal area probably has the largest number of transporters or the transport business.
Yep.
You rendered these people, with one stroke of the pen, you rendered many of them jobless. You know, we've forgotten, because of COVID, the demonstrations that were there in Mombasa regarding this.
Yep.
When you transfer business in that manner, yes, the transporters can move to Naivasha. They can do all these things. But the point is this. The changes that you bring about are so cataclysmic that one feels there should have been more thought and processing put into this thing instead of what we've actually been seeing. Because this one causes turmoil, it causes confusion. And you could easily have done this and done it in a way that is easy to explain
to people. I think also that it was necessary to have the inclusion of opinion of the parties involved, because there's a manner in which they operate that once you come and give such directives, it may make sense from the desk that you're operating from behind, but that makes absolutely no sense to the people who have to operate it on a minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour basis. And these are individuals who are not just looking to make noise for the sake of making noise, but in terms of operation, it makes no sense. You come and say something like this, not taking into consideration. Look at some of the countries around the world where you see seamless operations of such things. There is the buy-in of the participants. They're telling you not just because that they want to have an opinion, but they're telling you, look, this is how it would make sense. And I think if we're going to see any kind of development, real development, there has to be inclusion. There has to be participatory inclusion to make sure that you're dealing across board. Because guess what? The people that you're giving this edict over, what if you don't have their buy-in and they're just not going to operate?
Remember,
what are you going to do?
These other countries, let's move away from Kenya. Let's talk about Uganda, Rwanda, and maybe Sudan. You know, these people have a say.
This is it.
In fact, the Uganda Minister for Transport wrote a letter to our Minister for Transport, demanding no less and saying, look, please let the importers decide how they want to transport their goods. For heaven's sake. Let them decide.
It's even the way the ministry, so the CS for transport was in Parliament yesterday, and he was asked, so listen, You had a meeting at the office of the president with the leadership from the coast, especially those from Mombasa. The governor of Mombasa was there, local leaders from Mombasa were there, local business people were there, and you agreed that, okay, because we understand the impact that this order of transporting goods, everything via SGR onto Nairobi Inland Container Depot is having in Mombasa, let's relook at these things, let's allow the trucks to continue operating. Then suddenly you come and say, all transit goods go straight to Naivasha. Is this a negation of that prior arrangement? And he's saying, no. You see, that arrangement was about Nairobi. This is now Naivasha. Like, there's a difference.
Really isn't.
That initial agreement was because we were telling people to move all their goods via SGR to Nairobi and collect them from Nairobi. Everything to be collected from Nairobi. Now, this is different because this is not an order on Nairobi. This is an order on Naivasha. Number two, this order does not affect local goods. It only affects transit. As if the business people in Mombasa only have separated themselves. Like, I sell tea and mandazi
and
to
I
only
sell
the people
something
who work
totally
in CFS.
Eric, do you
CFS.
know how ridiculous this thing is when you think of it? It means if my goods were destined for Mombasa, I have to come all the way to Nairobi.
To Nairobi,
Or
go to
Naivasha,
Naivasha, and then go back
collect
to
them and then
Mombasa.
go back. To
That
the
was
coast.
initially.
And
But
they-
now this is the order now is only for transit goods.
You know,
Which you know clearly that from there they are going
They're going somewhere else.
They're going towards
Actually,
Naivasha. They will not go back this way. They will not go
I
back
have
down
my
towards
doubts.
Mombasa.
I have my doubts. I have my doubts because what we are told as being the truth and what the truth is, there's
Sometimes.
very often, oftentimes, there's a great variance between these two things. And I will wait and see.
I think the Ministry of Transport really has some issues that keep.
I think the
cropping out.
minister
Yeah.
in charge of transport really needs to get his act together because we have not spoken about the ferry for a long time.
This is not the first time he's
have
had
not
a ball drop like this.
We have not spoken about the painting that was done on Thika Road. Was it 2 years ago? Some yellow paint somewhere. Oh, this is going to be the BRT lane. And there were no buses.
There were no buses.
Same ministry. Mohaji Chopevu is trying to launch a campaign to have the minister censured by Parliament. And he says he's been gathering a number of signatures. Actually, one of these days we should talk to Moha and hear what's his beef. And people who have come to the defense of the CS, James Macharia, say, come on, you don't even understand the process and the procedure of passing a vote of no confidence against the CS. Go back to school. 16 minutes after 7, let's take a look at weather. And then we go back to school.
Sun's tried to peek through the clouds in Nairobi this morning at 13 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 today with showers in most parts of the city. Nyeri is mostly cloudy this morning at 13 degrees and the showers have already started to come down in a light drizzle, likely to continue well into Thursday with highs of 21. Taking a look then into Nakuru, where it was partly cloudy this morning. The cloud cover has increased, however. Indications that rain is going to come down soon. Highs of 22 in that central town. In Eldoret this morning, it's quite foggy at 13. We will see thunderstorms later. Highs of 19 and lows of 12. Kisumu, mostly cloudy conditions at 19, highs of 27 with showers forecasted for the afternoon. Taking a look into Kakamega, where the rain will continue for most parts of the day with highs of 24 and lows of 15. Malindi is partly cloudy this morning at 26 degrees. The sun will peek out, but not for long, where showers will come in and cover the day with highs of 28 and lows of 25. Taking a look then into Mombasa, where it's partly cloudy at 24 degrees, highs of 28 with showers in the afternoon. All right, let's take a quick peek into to East Africa, where it's partly cloudy in Kampala, highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam promises to be a clear morning, only partly cloudy conditions through the day, highs of 31 and lows of 22. Let's take a look then into Joburg, where it's really cold this morning, according to those standards. Showers have already started coming in at 4 degrees. We'll see highs of 11 and lows of -2 today throughout most parts of South Africa. And then finally for now in Lagos, it's clear skies at 26. That's not going to last for long though, because it'll be an afternoon of rain well into the night with highs of 28 and lows of 23.
After 7, this is the situation when it's this conversation. At about 7:30, the conversation is
Spice up your life.
Senate yesterday, and what we expect to see.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Move against the governor of Kirinyaga County, and will be speaking on the Senate.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is Narok Senator Ledama Ole Kina. In the meantime, our conversation continues about the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. It has everything in this ministry, okay? Now, there's this order for transport of transit goods that are destined for other countries. Everything that arrives at the port of Mombasa gets onto the SGR, goes to the Naivasha terminal. This is where the dry port is being established, and the ministry is saying that this is already in operation, and all the goods now that are going on transit should be processed there. The government, the ministry is actually now saying that the main reason why we have taken this decision at this point is because we are seeing, number one, the high risk of transmission of COVID-19 by truck drivers. So we want to minimize the interaction that they have with the people. So if you remove the entire it's about 700 kilometers between Mombasa and Naivasha, you've basically said you've removed a lot of interaction, possible interaction of truck drivers and local communities in all these places. And then you're saying, anyway, your goods are going to Uganda, to Rwanda, to South Sudan, to Burundi, to the DRC. If you collect them from there, it's as good as collecting them from Mombasa, but it's faster. So come, collect from Naivasha, take them. On paper, this sounds okay.
What happens in practice?
Now, in practice, of course, is what the truck drivers are complaining. You know, everybody, there are people who will always complain. There are those who will complain that this was not a well thought out idea. There are those who will complain that this was not well communicated. There are those who will complain that there are delays now in Naivasha, which have moved from Mombasa. There are those who will complain that, you know, our clearing agent is still in Mombasa. And so when we are going to collect our goods in Naivasha, we still have this back and forth with our clearing, whatever many reasons. But on paper, it sounds good. What we were saying is some of these decisions that seem to be made on the fly and the impact that they have on various other aspects.
It appears to me like a pregnant woman. You don't find out that you're having a baby on the 9th month. You know, as you're going along, first month this happens, second month, etc., etc. You begin to prepare for it. It's not like the baby's going to pop up and you say, oh my goodness, here's a baby. This is what I need to do. You have it is coming, you are aware. So just look at that one issue, for example, of a clearing agent that you use to be able to get goods out of Naivasha, for example. Now, if you come and you make this statement, even if you want to call them interim measures because of COVID and maybe things are going to change
emergency.
later.
I mean,
let's say it's okay.
There,
temporary
it's
measures.
And then the doctor says, well, look out.
We need to have a C-section today.
Emergency.
Now you're having this baby. So what then would you do in that situation to be able to fix this? How about saying that, you know, there was a timeline that we're going to give for certain things to be opened up? Clearing and forwarding agents who are still resident in Mombasa, is there something that you need to do ahead of time to make sure that these things are done so that people's goods then arrive in Naivasha and then you find out that the person who's supposed to be clearing them is not domiciled in Naivasha and then other things need to start happening? It becomes a mess. So I do agree. On paper, it's fantastic, the way in which this would run in somebody's mind, but you often find that somebody's mental operations by the time they are verbalized, just becomes something totally different. How then are people supposed to be able to deal with this if in the practice it's not been well thought out? There's so many other elements that are necessary to have this machinery running, and those have not been taken into consideration. And that is often the problem that we have. Because if we go back to what I said before, there is no buy-in from all the people who are involved in the process. It goes beyond somebody opening their mouth and saying, this is the way in which this is going to run. There's so many other people, there's so many other elements or factors that are involved in the process. Bring them in. It doesn't hurt. It never hurts. Bring them in. Let them explain to you these. And honestly, it seems so much more difficult because we are now discussing it after the fact. But it's actually something very simple. You know all that is needed to make sure that you have seamless operation. So at the time that you're making the decision, bring them in and have the discussion. Who doesn't know off the top of your head that in clearing goods you need an agent who's going to be able to sort you out? And these agents are part of this system that we're talking about. And that's just one issue. The uncomfortability of the whole situation, human beings will get over it. And if that's what it's going to be, it's going to be. But there's certain elements that are necessary to have in place. And if they're not in place by the time you're making that announcement, then it's going to be a problem for something that could have been sorted out very, very easily by means of proper communication. That's all that was necessary.
Why is Uganda complaining, City? Uganda wrote a letter and they were basically protesting this move.
They were protesting and saying that actually their importers should be allowed to decide how they want to transport their goods. For them to complain thus, what it means is they were being told this is how you're going to transport it. And they say, no. Look, we have arrangements in place. We've been doing this business for some time. Now, you're more or less asking us to dismantle the way we've been doing things and follow this new one. Partly, there's clearly change that has come about. People will resist change. That we accept and we know it's a norm. The problem is, this is change which lacks some form of clarity, as Andu is saying. Now, when it lacks clarity, you're not even sure how you should plan for it. If there was clarity from point A to B about everything, and there wasn't this changing this and then changing that, and then saying this and saying the other, then the change, yes, people would have said, but we're changing. But they would have said, you know something? It doesn't matter. This thing has been thought through, and this change will actually benefit us.
Yeah.
Now, you ask the question, does Naivasha have the infrastructure and the wherewithal to be able to manage what Mombasa could in terms of...
Oh, there's no way. Absolutely not.
The supporting system that you require for clearing things?
It probably is there, a bit of it, but it has not. I do not believe that it has reached the level that it should.
It shouldn't. And for the capacity that you're asking people to come and operate from,
It starts from the point of, I just looked at those video footage, one of the times when I think KTN journalists had gone there and they accompanied the CS when he was inspecting the facility. The junction from the road between my Mahiu and Narok, that's my Mahiu Narok road, where now you get into the container depot. It's just an ordinary junction. You're thinking of heavy truck turning right or turning left, and you have not factored in a proper interchange. That for me was just the first indicator of this thing is not ready. There's no deceleration lane, there's no acceleration lane, there's no interchange to go into this, what is going to be a very, very busy facility.
And the transport we're talking about, this is massive. The trucks are huge.
They're huge.
You can't have the ordinary road that you define in the middle of a housing estate on that particular road.
And then you have to ask yourself the question, and it's really painful to ask after the fact, that could this have been taken into consideration?
But of course.
And something done about it? That's the problem. Because now here we are dealing with when you want people to go ahead and operate. You want them to operate with the status quo of, as we say in Nigeria, before. It can't be. Something's got to change.
People used to exit the port through just one or two. There were two passages out of the port. There was the Kipevu side, which actually brings you out in a place called Changamwe. But it was never really expanded. It existed, but it wasn't used much because, as I said, then it was realized that, when you open Kipevu, what it means is the lorries don't have to go through town.
Yep.
They come out of Kipevu straight to Changamwe. They're on the
They're
and
on
they're
the
heading
way.
they're heading out of town. It took time. That road was expanded, and suddenly a lot of things changed. Now, there's Makupa Causeway that leads to that roundabout, that Changamwe roundabout. Man, that thing could get congested for you.
Yep.
Unbelievably so. Lorries mostly. And you knew, lorries tend to leave the port at such a time.
Yep.
And when they do, there will be a jam. So if you happen to be going, say, somewhere like the airport, you will miss your flight.
You know very well that this is an afternoon flight. Just
Yes.
better leave in the morning.
Yes. Go and sit at the airport. So all I'm saying is, these things, as you correctly put it, with the prior planning and communicating the plans, this teeth-pulling process that we are now in doesn't arise. You know, when things are going well, you really don't hear of complaints. If there's no news, actually.
You don't.
Yeah, nothing is. I mean, that's why
I
you don't
keep
hear about
wondering,
it.
this is the one ministry that has engineers, all right?
Oh,
If you
it
think about
has
transport
plenty.
engineers, if you think about infrastructure engineers, you think about housing engineers,
Roads.
everything. However, implementation of projects by this ministry always have that end problem. Always at the user point, when the user is now coming to interface into the project, problems. SGR
At the most
completed-
important point.
simple one. SGR, this one, going to Mombasa, and the terminal in Mombasa is called what? The terminal in
It
Mombasa.
is in...
Meri-
no, not Meritini. Is it not Meritini?
Meritini.
It is.
It is
It is
Meritini.
Meritini. That terminal at Meritini, coming from Meritini, getting into Mombasa town, that road was not constructed for months.
Once you get to Miritini, you get to
We have
Miritini.
launched-
Finish. It terminates.
We have launched the services of the Madaraka Express. We have launched. They are going. People get to Meritini,
Terminate.
and then they start now finding their way through the mud.
Oh, clearly you've used that,
Yes.
my friend.
And you knew very well that
you,
this is
you
what
go
is going
through
to happen.
villages.
This is what is going to happen. We are creating a terminal here, so therefore you require an exit from
Expand the road, do the other, in preparation for the traffic.
Not
And there's
done.
a lot of traffic on that road.
there. Not done for long. For a very long time, that was not done. This is the same kind of thing. We're talking about Busia and the congestion that we are seeing in Busia, right? Look at how it's being implemented. Okay, wataenda wapi? Ile airport, fungua airport. Wacha wakae huko kwa airport. That's it.
Essentially, you've solved this problem of congestion
You-
by taking the congestion elsewhere.
Elsewhere. And you have not even thought about how are these trucks going to enter, how are they going to leave this particular airstrip. You can imagine in Busia, the roads are not wide. So coming from the airstrip back onto the road, going to be processed at the border point.
And by the way, the
Congestion.
airstrip is not that it's very far from the border.
No.
Busia is a small place. In fact, in the past, you could actually pass Busia town and get to the border and then ask,
Where was Busia?
when are you going to be?
Tunafika Busia Sangap.
You're told we passed it. So you have to ask, at what point did we pass it? Okay. Now,
Now you have trucks here.
now that has changed. You know you're going through a town. This isn't a problem. Remember why, for instance, you heard of the expansion of the berths at the port. Most of them were in the Kipevu area. For the same reason. The container depot, the inland container depot, the container terminals, they were in that direction, meaning you load and you exit quietly.
Yeah,
Yep.
no need for you to start going backwards.
You are not going to be creating these messes and this. You leave.
It's
Planned.
29 minutes to 8. Let's take a look at traffic. Take a look at traffic. The state of our roads this morning. And then this conversation continues. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, CT Muga Nduoko and Eric Latif.
Well, okay, there's traffic right around Westlands because there's complaints of Westlands Road being an absolute mess this morning, and that's what we see. Areas having been converted to parking bays or markets, as it were, and so now getting off onto the main Waiaki Way is a problem this morning. Traffic is very slow, and we also see an issue right where Sewage problems have blocked parts of Gong Road right around the Goretti corner, and so that affects traffic coming down Gong Road. We haven't seen traffic on Gong Road for some time, but we see that today. Mombasa Road and also Thika Road, we see the normal Wednesday morning problems. Hopefully, it won't get a lot worse than what we already see right now. Should you see something, do let us know. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Hoping it won't be too terrible of a morning as concerns traffic today. If you get stuck somewhere, do let us know.
Cover story today. Laundry.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Shouting, bringing corruption rock parliament as senators hand Governor and life.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Waiguru's fate now lies with 11 senators. So there was the whole discussion yesterday. It was tabled. Motion was tabled yesterday. And the majority side proposed that the best way to handle this matter is to have a select team, 11 senators, sit in a committee who will interrogate this matter. They'll call in the accusers, and this is the County Assembly of Kirinyaga, and they'll also call in the defense, and this is Anne Waiguru. She'll come in and will hear the accusations, and the senators, the Senate committee will interrogate the matter deeply, thoroughly, objectively, and come up with a report. And then that report will be tabled in Parliament, and they'll recommend the next steps. Either they'll agree with the County Assembly of Kirinyaga and say this governor ought to be impeached, or they'll disagree and say we have not found sufficient evidence to warrant impeaching the governor of Kirinyaga County or removing her from office.
How were these 11 selected?
They're usually selected, by the majority. They sit down, the leaders of the House. The leader of the majority, the leader of the minority, and the whips, they sit down and they're like, all right, so we need to create an 11-member committee, okay? Now, of course, the 11-member committee, the majority will reflect in the committee in terms of they'll also be the majority in the committee, and the minority will also reflect in terms of being the minority in the committee. Yep. Okay. And then they propose these names before the House. Now, the drama was in the Senate because... remember, just a couple of months ago, we had the same issue regarding former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu, Babayao. Mm-hmm. When the issue of Babayao was taken to the Senate, the then leader of the majority, Kipchumba Murkomen, had proposed an 11-member committee to interrogate this matter. Mm-hmm. This is normal. I mean, it's provided even in the standing orders of the Senate that when a matter like this comes, the Senate can either opt to have a select committee looking into it, or it can decide to have the entire House becoming the committee.
Yes.
And so the plenary interrogates the matter. Kipchumba proposed 11-member committee. The House, when they were debating that, they rejected that proposal.
Shut it down properly.
And they said, no, everything has to be aired in public here for all of us to see, to hear the allegations, to vote going forward. We don't want to be told by a select committee that has sat somewhere that this is what we heard and this is what we are proposing and recommending. Yesterday, it was the other way around completely. The majority side of the Senate yesterday was saying, committee is the best. In fact, the work of Parliament, a lot of the work of Parliament happens in committees.
True.
Committees do a lot of work.
True.
And this one now gives us an opportunity to interrogate better, to have a team that sits and works even longer hours to interrogate this. A committee can even sit until midnight working on this. We have seen other committees looking at the other governors before. This would work perfectly well. This is the best way to go. And then they can come and tell us what their recommendation is, and we'll look at what their report says. We will vote to either adopt the report or to reject the report. But committee, best route. Kipchumba Murkomen, who's now no longer a leader of anything in the House, was there leading the troops saying, no, this thing ought to be done by the whole House. Tables turn. We must uphold democracy. We must have transparency in these matters. We must see and hear what everybody thinks and what everybody says. We must all hear for ourselves what the County Assembly of Kirinyaga has against this governor. In fact, at some point, the leader of the minority, James Orengo, stood up and said, look, come on. This is, and he likened this, he went to the story of the Bible. King Herod, who married a woman called Herodias, and Herodias was this woman who, because there's a man called John the Baptist who had opposed the marriage.
He didn't marry that woman. It was his brother's wife.
Yes, he took the brother's wife. Because John had opposed this union of these two. Herodias did not like this particular person called John the Baptist. So this one time, Herod hosts a birthday party for his wife, and the wife's daughter comes and dances very well, and clearly inebriated Herod calls and says, ask me anything you want. I'll give, even if it's half my kingdom.
I'll give you.
I'll give you. Girl goes to mother. Girl asks mother, what should I ask for?
Head, platter, John.
Head, John, platter here. This is what Orengo is saying. There's somebody who wants Waiguru's head on a platter here. And it's not the people of Kirinyaga County or the members of the County Assembly of Kirinyaga. There is a Herodias somewhere who has sent these girls to come and ask for the head of Anne Waiguru. We are not going to participate in this. And this is the complaint. This is what he was saying. No. There are other underhand deals happening here, and we need to make sure that we are not going to give them space to come and misuse this honorable assembly to do that.
Right.
Drama. Drama galore. Let's speak to somebody who was in the house yesterday, and this is the Narok Senator Ledama Olekina. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Salama kabisa. Welcome to the Situation Room. It's been a while.
I know. COVID.
Oh, right.
Everything is COVID now.
Well, what can we say? It's the new order of the world.
True.
Yeah.
Now, Senator, you voted, first of all, there was a move to create a committee, and there was opposition for that, to have the entire plenary sitting and listening to these accusations and making a decision. You voted committee route. Why?
Yes, I did. I just think it's fair. It will be fair for both parties. Eric, remember that Article 96 of the Constitution is very clear, that my role in the Senate is to defend the interests of the counties and their government. I have studied the Constitution clearly. I have been a member of the Public Accounts and Investment Committee. I have gone through 47 Auditor General reports to see how counties, spend their money. I know who the executive authority is vested in. It is not on an individual, but on a committee.
Mm-hmm.
I invite you to even pick up a copy of the Auditor General report. I know you have Google there.
Mm-hmm.
When you download the document, it is actually the entire executive committee, which is what is enshrined in the Constitution, Article 179. I felt that there was a lot of hullabaloo which was being made outside there. There was a lot of noise out there. We were now being directed by people from outside that we should go a certain way, Yet the people who are doing that have no idea of our standing orders. Most of the work, especially work that involves a lot of money, it is actually investigated properly through a committee. Because the committee will have time to even travel to Kirinyaga, go and verify those allegations. They have time to go through the tender documents. We do not have that time at plenary. In fact, at plenary, you cannot even ask a question. At plenary, it is a little bit discriminatory in the sense that when you are going through the documentation, unless the evidence is quite clear, like in the case of Kiambu Governor, where there was a lot of paper trail, you could see letters written by the former governor, Tito. You could also see that the deputy governor bolted from the get-go, and he was not part of the executive committee. And at that time, when I was looking at it from there, because I was in the House Business Committee, I just said, you know what, any which way. plenary or committee for Wetito
This goose
would
is
give the
cooked.
people of Kiambu, yes, it will give justice, and this goose was cooked.
But okay, so before we even go into those, comparing those two processes, you have mentioned that there are people who are outside the house who are trying to influence how this matter should be handled. Who are these people?
Yeah. Yes.
Who are these people?
If you remember, way back in March, I believe it was around March 13th, there was a huge fight on one big piece of land in Kirinyaga, about 100 acres.
Mm-hmm.
That is when the fight started. The MCAs wanted Anwe Guru to release the title deed for the 100-acre land to the Kenya Medical Research Institute. That whole project was worth about 15 billion. There was a lot of fight out there, and she said, no, if I'm going to release this land, I want to know how it's going to benefit the Wanjikos of Kirinyaga. That is when really the whole beef started. People started fighting her, you can go on the internet and search, and I'm sure you'll be able to come out and see the people who were fighting her.
The watchdog, which is the MCAs, were asking one thing. The executive, which is the governor, was saying something different. Is that really a fight, or is that basically a cause of governance?
It becomes a fight when you know your role. There is a clear separation of powers. The parliament, in this case, let's even call it the assembly.
Yep.
The assembly in this case, their role is oversight. Their role is not to execute.
Mm-hmm.
You've given me a mandate to execute. Don't try and come and dictate or micromanage every process. Ask me. When they send my officers to appear before the Public Accounts and Investment Committee of the Assembly, ask them, how come this has not been done well? How come this has not been done well? See, the problem is this. We forget our roles. If you look at even most MCAs in this country, they have been pushing for something called a ward development, or whatever, I think, fund.
Yep.
That is not my role as a legislator. My role is to, make laws. My role is to approve the budget of the executive. But now, if I also want to have money to carry out certain functions of the executive, what exactly are we doing? There's an issue of competition here.
Okay.
You say, the governor has done this, the governor has done this.
Going back to March, so who is this? Who started this fight, and who is this then that is influencing how the Senate should handle this matter?
I don't think that's a fair question to ask, because I read what
other quarters.
I read in the. Let me put it this way: we've seen it in the press. We've seen people talking. In the media, the Kirinyaga leadership. I don't know their names. I just see them on TV saying, "Oh, we are the Kirinyaga leaders. We want." It goes even to the extent of saying, "You guys, you took our girl. Let her go. We don't want her back here." When you see such people arguing and making such arguments, I don't really know them in person. I just see them screaming out there. And then there was a huge campaign in the media of people saying, no, we do not. We want 68 people to listen to all these issues, and they don't even know the processes. They don't even know that not 68 senators vote. I mean, it's only 47
delegations
who are elected. Yes, So really, you cannot try and dictate. You cannot come in and tell me. I cannot come in right now and tell you, hey, guys, with the situation room, this is how I want you to carry out your affairs.
Right.
It's your choice.
It's clear this. Just looking at this going forward, Senator, it's clear that this is going to go the committee way, and there are sentiments out there that the outcome has already been decided. Is that the case? And can you dissuade people from that belief?
It is very unfortunate. I can tell you that.
That's the case, or that people feel that way?
The way the people feel, because you cannot judge a book by its cover. I actually, I felt like we were being attacked for nothing, because when people were discussing these issues, I had not even seen the charges. I had not even seen what do they have. Now, let me ask you a question. Suppose they bring in like 10 truckloads of documents as evidence, okay? And they are not allowed to enter the chambers for them to be able to, prosecute their case, or call witnesses. How will the plenary help them? In fact, the committee will do a better job, because the committee will say, okay, do you have witnesses? Yes.
How come this argument was not used in the Waitito case? Like you're saying, you personally sat in the House Business Committee, and you looked at the evidence brought, and you already passed judgment and said, okay, this one, the goose is cooked.
No. Eric, get me. I want you to get me very clearly. I sat in the House Business, and in the House Business, we proposed the committee way. We gave names, okay, from our side of NASA, and Jubilee gave their names. When we went to the floor of the House, just like yesterday, okay, the motion to have it go committee way was defeated. After it was defeated, I looked at the document and I said, okay, fair enough. I think really this is not a very long case. Because first of all, Waitito did not even file a response when he was required to file. He actually came in with he came in with a preliminary objection, saying that this should not be, I should not be, the Senate should not be hearing this matter. Yes.
Same thing with Waiguru, isn't it?
No. Waiguru went to court. There's separation of powers here. She's gone to court. We will know if Waiguru will file a response to the committee. Okay? Because you remember, we voted for it to go plenary. Then we gave a date, a special sitting, when now the trial would begin. And you are given a period of time to be able to file your responses. He refused. What he filed was a preliminary objection.
Yep.
Yeah. So really, what he should have done, as for our standing orders, is that he should have filed his entire response and then put in an application for preliminary objection and say, I have filed my all the responses, and part of the responses include a preliminary objection. And these are the reasons why, A, B, C, D.
Okay, so the public feeling here is, number one, the Waitito case, because Waitito was on the wrong side of the political divide, his goose was cooked. He was with Tangatanga. Tangatanga leaders came into the house and they wanted to take it to a committee. And the committee was, as it had been proposed, was clearly dominated by Tangatanga people. So the assumption was that, well, they were going to clear him. In this particular case, Anne Waiguru is seen to be on the correct side of things politically. She supports the handshake, she supports BBI, she is on the Kieleweke side, so she's not Tangatanga. And that's why we were seeing Tangatanga legislators yesterday opposing everything else that has been proposed by the majority. Now, is it not fair to say that looking at how we saw in the Waitito case and looking at what we are seeing in this particular case, simply because she's on the right side of the majority in the House, she's likely to get cleared?
First of all, Eric, let me put it this way. The Senate of the Republic of Kenya is made up of 47 elected senators. It doesn't matter how many people you have in Lamu or how many people you have in Nairobi. If you have 800,000 people who elect you in Nairobi versus 70,000 people who elect you in Lamu, you are equal. The Senate is a house of union. It is a house that unites all these people. It is comprised of two sides of the divide, the opposition and the government. This whole story is about Kieleweke, Tangatanga, BBI, handshake is not something for that house. We pass legislations in that house through a bipartisan approach. We look at what is good for the country. So all these things, we don't want to bring in the politics outside. Because let me tell you, we will be dancing to the gallery if we agree to go with what the public is saying there. We shouldn't. We cannot be swayed in a certain way. We should be given an opportunity. And I'm telling you, this is the only way that the people of Kirinyaga will get their justice, because everything will be out in open. The press will get an opportunity to look at and examine all the evidence which will be presented by both parts. And also, but if it was happen the other way, akuna, you will not get an opportunity. The other thing, which is very clear, and this is the point that I would want to emphasize on, is that since the executive authority is vested in a group of individuals, not a one individual, I think this impeachment proceeding will be able to help Kenyans take charge. If you've appointed me as the CC in charge of finance, it is my responsibility, as per the Public Finance Management Act, the powers that I've given by the PFM Act or the PPTA, or even the Public Audit Act, that I ensure fiduciary responsibility. It doesn't matter if the governor tells me, hey, Ebu, write a check for me for $100,000. Unless it's in the budget, unless it is something which is approved for particular expenses, I will not. Because I know Article 226, subsection 5 of the Constitution would swallow me alive.
Mheshimiwa, so from what I hear you say, I am getting the impression that the Senate is a place where the fundamental focus of all the members is to ensure that the Kenyan citizen gets a fair shake. And in so saying, we seem to have given the divisions and the animosity that sometimes exists between the opposition and government a backseat. Is it really true and right to say that your representation of Senate is a true representation of all the senators?
That's my belief, that as senators, when we sit together, we look at whatever has been presented to us, we actually defend the Constitution. We represent the entire country.
All of
because
you?
when
I'm sorry, Senator, but if we're just going to come out of what was said even yesterday, and we look at if you're saying that you're representative as a whole, there are sentiments coming out of Senate even now that are very clear that they would have preferred to go a different way. We heard the former majority whip. What did he say yesterday? He said, as far as he's concerned, the decision has already been made. These are individuals who are going to make a decision. We already know which way it's going to go. How can that be said on one hand, and then you say that there is a collective agreement on how Senate is going forward? How can that be when it's very clear, even if it is just perception, it is very clear that there is a divide?
Let me correct this. Our hope in the Senate and what has happened previously is that we've always sat down and agreed on things through a bipartisan approach. Mm-hmm. But when interest, it's put in first, then the divide is very clear. Whatever had happened, and if you remember very well, I don't know whether you watched my interview with Ann Kiguta, I said the changes which were going to be made were going to make it very difficult for Kenyans to see the Senate as one house. Because all the tactics that the former majority leader was using yesterday, heckling, trying to buy time, we're even very lucky that the standing orders give the speaker latitude, for him to extend the time when he wants to. Yeah. Because by the time it got to 6:30 p.m., we had not yet completed the voting. Yep. And remember, we took so much time arguing whether we should extend,
which you refused to extend.
Which we refused because it was more like filibustering. You can talk until tomorrow morning or talk until the next day, and nothing stops you. Remember, you can just see what was happening.
It was clear that your minds were made up. It was clear your minds were made up.
It was not clear that our minds were made up. It was not clear.
Perception is a big deal, Senator, and the perception out there. I don't think we can divorce ourselves from the state of things and perception of the people, because the perception then forms decisions. And here we see that it seems as if from the get-go that this is what we wanted to do, and that is how the day was going to end. Now, that's the perception that
we
was
didn't
out
want
there. How
this
can you really change
different?
that from what we saw that was taking place yesterday?
I want to appeal to Kenyans to really try to understand the procedures of Parliament. Okay? This was not the debate of impeaching Waiguru. If it was the debate, if it had been decided that we go plenary in terms of confirming the impeachment, because the Senate doesn't impeach. What the Senate does, it confirms.
Yep.
Okay? If it was a debate on confirmation, I don't care. It can even go for 4 days. We can spend the night there, wake up again, drink coffee, and continue. But this was just agreeing. Which way do we go? It was a procedural motion, really, a very basic procedural motion. But we created a big hullabaloo because we wanted to please people out there and lie to the public out there that we are defending their interest, and we were not.
What do you say? What do you say, Senator? What do you say to? I think. If you allow me, let's just take a short pause. Look at today's proverb. Take a look at traffic, and then we continue this conversation. When we come out of it, I'd like to ask you what you want to say about your Director of Elections, Junet Mohammed, and what he's been publicly saying, that the party wants to stand with Anne Waiguru. Just stay on the line. You'd like to hear today's proverb from C.T. Muga.
Today's proverb is simple and straightforward, and it's in Kiswahili. Akili ni mali.
Umesikia, Senator?
Kila mtu akona nywele zake.
Si nywele ni mali. I knew you were going to go to the nywele part because of course, your nywele. But today's proverb is not akili ni nywele. Kila mtu akona zake. Today's proverb is akili ni mali. Okay, keep it right here. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now coming up to 8 o'clock. We are speaking with Narok Senator Ledama Olekina on what transpired in the Senate yesterday. They opted to go the committee way of interrogating the matter of impeachment of Governor Anne Waiguru. Good morning.
Taking a look at how the roads look like right now. Mombasa Road, a little bit clogged up right around Cabanas heading towards General Motors, but that's normal at this time. It's not too bad. It's not something that you will not be able to get through. Let's see, other parts of the city at this moment. On Thika Road, it is not so bad either. Getting to the Pangani underpass from Muthaiga Corner, we'll be able to see that you'll get through without any problems. It's going to be slow, but it'll take you through. So it's bumper to bumper in some cases, snaking along slowly. Nothing major happening now. Should it be, we'll let you know. Spice of MKE, let us know as well.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian.
To interrogate the matter of impeachment of Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru. This committee comprises of 4 members of ODM, 5 members of Jubilee, 1 member of KANU, and 1 member of the Amani National Congress. This makes it 11. And, well, clearly you can see that if we go with Jubilee and the Jubilee coalition, post-election coalition with KANU, then Jubilee has a majority of 6, and then the NASA coalition has 5. Now, we are speaking with the ODM Senator, Ledama Olekina. He's a senator for Narok County. And before we went into the look at traffic, Senator, I'd asked you, the Director of Elections in ODM, Junaid Mohammed, has been saying publicly and repeating for all to hear that ODM wants to stand behind the governor of Kirinyaga County, Anne Waiguru. Now, you've talked about people who are outside the Senate trying to influence how members of the Senate will think and vote in this one. Here we're talking about a leader of your party speaking outside the Senate. He's not even a member of the Senate, but speaking about what the wishes of the party are. What do you say to that?
I'm glad you say that he's not even a member of the Senate. You know, no one stops anybody from saying what he or she wants to say. The last I checked, although sometimes we get in trouble for speaking our mind, we have freedom of speech. And that's exactly why I said that we in the Senate were not going to be dictated or directed by anybody outside there. Junaid has his right to express his view, but remember that Junaid is the whip of the National Assembly. He is not the whip of the Senate.
Yeah.
If it was Mutula Kilonzo talking outside there, I would have picked up the phone and said, "Hey, boss, what the hell is going on? Why couldn't you wait for us to be able to discuss this issue in-house?" But of course, you know, politicians will always be politicians. They will say their views, they will say whatever they want to say there. And you know, politicians are known to be very controversial.
Junaid has been categorical that these are not just his wishes, but also the wishes of the party leader.
You know, let me tell you, it will not be fair to actually say that. Eric, I would want you to call Junaid and ask Junaid, what did you mean by this? Because I saw my own party leader speaking, and my party leader said, that is not my work. I'm not going to comment. Let senators do their work. And let me tell you something, by the way, which you don't know. Raila does not dictate what happens in the House. You know, sometimes even some of us are meant to believe that he dictates certain things, but he doesn't. We never, let me put it this way, we never even have a meeting with Raila for him to tell us, go vote a certain way, vote a certain way. By the way, we normally caucus, you know, as senators of NASA, and the person who talks to us there is, of course, you know, our leader in the House, which is Senator Orengo, and we all give our views very independently. You had yesterday the senator from Kitui, Wambua, giving his own divergent opinion. Earlier on, we had a caucus and we met, and you know, and of course, everyone said, "This is how I feel." You know, I feel about this. How I feel in the whole process. So really, we're very independent. I can tell you that. When it comes to us making our decision, we consult, we discuss. You know, but what I find that from the other side of the divide, they don't really consult. Maybe somebody comes and tells them, we're doing it, we're voting this way. You know, yesterday when I had an
the majority side, it's possible that they are influenced from outside the House.
Before, I don't know about now. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of people now talking. Let me tell you why. You know, before, you know, and I'll take you back to like the Ruaraka land report. My friend, they were all told to leave the chambers. The only people who remained there were 4 people, and I have respect because they voted no, and have respect for them. Because they said, no, we are voting no on this, but we don't want our people who to be here. And immediately after that vote, they all walked in. So you ask yourself, Kwani, what is wrong with the whole process?
It's a work of whipping.
In fact, at that time, we used to call them voting machines.
Senator, are you saying that in such matters, there never, ever is anything like a party position?
No, there's no party position. Akuna. Let me tell you, we are just told, gentlemen, let's listen to this. Someone will give their preference and say, okay, let's do this. Someone will stand there and convince you and say, gentlemen, I feel like this matter will be dealt better in a committee.
So when your fellow senators, just the other day, when your fellow senators were voting you out of a committee, was that orders from above? Was it their own individual thinking? Because you came out complaining that they had been whipped a certain direction.
Eric, my fellow senators never voted me out of a committee. Those are not facts. Okay? And that is now water under the tunnel. We move on. I personally resigned from the chairperson position, and I withdrew the case because it's only a fool who doesn't change his mind, and I'm still too young. So I'd rather not get into fights for nothing, because really
live to fight another day.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So finally, as we let you go and start the day, Senator, I would like you to speak to Kenyans because they are those that
I was falling asleep in an interview. So, but now because of getting tired, we're gone.
As you speak to Kenyans, there are those that are looking at that house and saying, we saw what happened to the IT2 case just the other day. We are seeing what's happening to the Anne Waiguru case. Even before yesterday in the Senate, we've been asking callers to call in and tell us, what do you think the direction this is going to take? And people were saying, come on, this has already been decided. From Capitol Hill and from State House, Anne Waiguru is going nowhere. So tell me, when the report comes before the full plenary for you to participate in voting, even looking at how this shall be conducted, can we be sure that senators are actually going to be objective?
First of all, let me put it this way. It's very unfortunate that during the impeachment proceedings of Governor Anne Waiguru, actually, let me put it, Governor Anne Waiguru, people started creating a huge hullabaloo at the initial stages of deciding which way to go, plenary or committee. If you compare it with the Waititu report, or Waititu impeachment proceedings, people got interest when Waititu actually appeared in the Senate. So the perception out there is wrong. It is very difficult to change people's perception, but I want to appeal to Kenyans to really try and understand the procedures of Parliament. When I was outside Parliament, I could say all the nasty things that I wanted to say about Parliament because I did not know how Parliament, operate. So before you throw a stone at Parliament, try to ask yourself, what does Parliament do? How does Parliament make their laws? Sometimes we'll even find a small motion, a procedural motion, being subjected into a decision or a ruling by the Speaker, just because of public interest out there. So let us not try to, throw blame games and say, a dice is cast. It was very unfortunate that my colleague, Murkomen, who understands clearly the procedures of Parliament, would go out on national television and tell Kenyans that this issue of Waiguru is done. We will only be restricted to the evidence, which will be tabled by both sides. I want to assure Kenyans that as one of their senators, I will do my best. I will go through the report, and going through the report, I will look at all the evidence, and I will even go to the extent of creating a page and pasting all the evidence there so that Kenyans can be able to see.
Okay.
And then from there, they can be able to make their mind. But I really want to ask them, when you elect someone to represent you, trust that he's going to do the best. And please, let us divorce interests. Eric, I invite you to go on Google and search Kirinyaga, land sagas and everything, and you will be able to understand. You'll be able to get the whole picture.
Okay.
This is not about one person. I'll be very candid. I have no interest in saving any governor or convicting any governor. All I want is a rule of law, and we'll be guided by the Constitution of Kenya. We want to be able to set a precedent. We will not be dictated upon by anybody outside there. We will do what is right. And what is right is to give justice to both Anne Waiguru and the people of Kirinyaga.
One would hope that the entire Senate brigade would think the same route and act the same way. And we hope that this is what exactly we are going to see unfolding in the matter of the Kirinyaga governor's impeachment. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Honorable Edama Olakina.
You're welcome, Eric.
Asante sana, and have a good day.
Good day.
This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We shift gears now. It's 13 minutes after 8. The conversation continues. Well, we will see what happens in the Senate in coming days. When the committee begins sittings, when they invite the accusers, the Kirinyaga County Assembly, where they also invite the defendant, in this particular case, the governor of Kirinyaga County. Let's see the evidence that's adduced and the kind of documentation and proof that they have to raise the issues that they've raised against their governor. Good morning. Let's take a look at whether the conversation continues.
It's 14 degrees and partly cloudy in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 22 today. The forecast is for some drizzle later. And in Nyeri this morning, it's mostly cloudy at 14. Rains expected later with highs of 21. Nakuru with highs of 22. We'll see showers in the afternoon today. And in Eldoret at 19 degrees, thunderstorms will be the order of the day, where the fog is very low today. And in Kisumu, we have partly cloudy conditions this morning at 19 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 19 with rains in the afternoon. Kakamega will follow suit in the afternoon with rains, highs of 24 and lows of 15, currently standing at 17 degrees. Malindi at 26 degrees. And light rain showers already coming down. Highs of 28 and lows of 24 with the rains going well into the night. In Mombasa, it is partly cloudy at 25. Cloudy conditions to follow with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Looking then into Kampala, where at 21 degrees, it's partly cloudy, carrying on through the day with highs of 25 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam this morning is partly cloudy at 24. The sun will come through for most parts of the day. Highs of 31. And then looking into Johannesburg, where it's quite chilly this morning, and the rain showers continue to come down with highs of 10 and lows of 1. And finally, for now, in Lagos at 26 degrees, it's clear skies with highs of 28 and lows of 23. Rains will come in through most parts of the afternoon.
Quarter past 8. This is the situation room. The conversation continues. Well, we'd like to know what you think about what happened in the Senate. It was all objective. It's all standing for the rights and the good of the people of Kirinyaga County and ensuring that the Senate remains independent in all its decisions. We'll come back to that conversation. For now, let's just shift a little bit. We've seen hotels. Now, yesterday, the CS for Health said that the hours for closing of restaurants is going to be pushed from 5 p.m. to
7 p.m.
Yep. And so now we have longer hours to operate, especially for the hospitality sector. Remember, we have always had conversations with the players in this sector because this is one of the sectors that was immediately hit, especially the hotels. Tourism in this country was badly hit. The tourism hotels that depending a lot on tourism were seriously affected by COVID-19. We have seen hotels saying that they are laying off their staff. Many of them, the big brands, have done that already. They've said that they're laying off their staff or sending their staff on unpaid leave. The president has listened to their pleas and even reacted to this. And the president, in his 53.7 billion shillings stimulus program, he announced a 2 billion shillings support for the hotel industry and even said some more money is going to be taken to this sector to help them stay afloat in their operations. Now, we'd like to know, is this being beneficial to the sector? Number two, is there a plan for the revival of this? Because we don't really expect that tourism will hit a peak just because we say that the world is reopening by September, that people are going to start traveling. People have lost incomes. So one of the things that you do is you reduce the amount of travel. There's also going to be a lot of fear on traveling from one country to another. So our tourism may take a while to recover, right? Let's speak to the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. He's, long-term hotelier and respected person in this sector, Mohammed Hersi. Good morning, Mohammed.
Good morning, Eric, and good to be here.
Asante sana for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Now, you're still in Mombasa, aren't you?
Yes, I'm still in Mombasa, not really locked down per se, but because I live here, this is my home.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. You've just heard how we've introduced this particular topic. We have seen hotels announcing layoffs for their staff. These are painful decisions that are being made across the board.
Yes, I've heard you. I have heard the introduction, and one of the emotional things, let alone layoffs. Even when you send somebody on unpaid leave or you start cutting their salary, reducing what they take home, it's a very difficult moment because it means someone somewhere is not able to take care of their family. And things are there, definitely people will suffer, and that's our biggest concern. But as always, again, we want to see that there's some hope at the end of the tunnel, which I'll cover in a short while.
Okay. The president announced some stimulus money, some 2 billion shillings to come straight into the hotel industry. There have been other measures that also are meant to benefit players in this sector, including like the tax waivers and all. Are these having an impact?
Firstly, I'd like to thank the government and His Excellency the President and also our CS, because it's one of the few ministries that they've been able to attend to right from the day one of COVID. And while Kenya shilling 2 billion may not be a lot of money in the scheme of things, because if we are to take all the players in the industry, we are looking at something like 50,000 per establishment. That's a drop in the ocean. But the fact that they're able to give is very rare for government to give you money specifically, to address salaries. So for me, that's a good gesture, because it does not happen for any other ministry. It does not happen for any other sector in the country. So it's a start. And we are yet to see how we are going to share that fund or how it's going to be allocated. There's a committee that has been formed. And we're going to come up with the criteria and look at who are the most needy. Obviously, for us in leadership, we are looking at helping the ones on the lower cut, the ones whose savings can't even last a month or 2 months to take them through the hard times. So it's better you help some 100 low-paid employees rather than helping one manager who may have a bit of savings. That's the position. And obviously, again, from the spirit of African Ubuntu, you help the people who are on the lower end. So, yes, it's a good gesture, and we appreciate. Is it good enough? Certainly not. We can do better. But again, let's face it, government has to take care of many other sectors as well.
So essentially what we're looking at here is to put some money in the pockets of those who've lost their jobs as a result of the fact that the service industry, in this sense, basically shut down. And is the assumption then that as things open up, then we're not going to have to plug this particular hole, and that as it starts to trickle back in, it'll be fine? Is that the assumption then?
Yeah, the assumption, tourism industry is a very labor-intensive industry. Labor-intensive in the sense that we are not automated per se. The only automation we have is the front desk, where you check in on the financial aspect. Because you cannot automate, a waiter serving you. You cannot automate, whipping that nice meal for you in the kitchen. You can automate making a room. So we are very labor-intensive. That's why, globally, tourism has been used as a vehicle to kick out poverty, to help people to put, to get money into their pockets. Countries like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, these are all war-torn countries less than 20, 30 years ago. Today, tourism is in the forefront. And tourism cannot be put in the back burner and you say, what, it's not important. There are people who actually doubt the contribution of tourism to the economy. But today, tourism is not working. Look at our shilling. Look at the, everything. It is said when tourism sneezes, the rest of the economy catches a serious flu. And that's where we are today. So, yes, it's a step in the right direction. But more important for us is the enabling other factors, like opening hours. When are we going to open the skies? Those are the things that we need addressed. I come from the school of thought of give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but allow him to go on the fish. He will be able to feed himself for life. So giving and the handout will not take us very far. So it's very important we quickly address now on how to come back. And you know what, as Kenyans, we are good in coming back.
Mr. Hersi, talking of coming back, what process would the industry actually have to take, even if, for instance, hypothetically speaking, they were given maybe 3 times the amount that the government has given? What are these actual steps that the industry would take to revive itself?
We have our plan in place, very clear plan. And we've been through this before, something similar, not to this magnitude, because, we are very resilient as Kenyans, and specifically Kenya's tourism. We've been down 2008. Hotels on the coast and good part of Nairobi, 5%, 10% occupancy, nothing happening. And we had to bring in all this international press, to bring in local press. We came up with the Tembea Kenya campaign, and within a year, we were back again. Okay? 2013, 2014, Al-Shabaab became a menace. Numbers again disappeared. And then we went back again, and came back. However, this one is about health, is about safety. Now, when you talk about health, this is individual. This is a concern for you. You come in here negative and you're worried that, hey, by the time I'm leaving this country, I may turn positive. So it is a very, very personal thing, and it is not something we faced before. Now, what plan do we have in place? Number one, we've come up with very clear guidelines and protocols that guides us. Hotels and restaurants, all the classified ones, we've always placed hygiene and safety top there, number one. So while I appreciate government concerns about restaurant opening hours, restaurant guidelines, testing of staff, one question I want to ask is this. Who is testing the Matatu crew? This same waiter that you've insisted he gets tested and you take us through all this is going to ride in that same Matatu anyway. That client walking through the door on a high street on Kenyatta Avenue in Nairobi, who tested him or her? So I think we need to be careful here, and I think this is why I need to point out to government that they're a little bit unfair to the tourism industry. Who is testing supermarket staff? Who is virtually touching and caressing your purchases at the till? Who's testing them? How much contact do you have with the waiter? How much contact do you have with the room steward? Do you have more contact with the room steward, or do you have more contact with the cashier at the till? These are the things, because we are getting the feeling now that actually some of these hurdles that are being placed is not good for the economy. And for a government officer to come on screen, on TV, and say, hey, you dare open beyond this hour, we will close you forever, and you will never ever. This is not the time for threats, okay? We have a long journey to make. And this is just not about Kenya, it's the whole world. So initially, as a country, of course, we did not know about the virus. And I support the government for the extreme. You normally start from an extreme.
Mr. Hersi, what specific plans does the industry have in place for recovery?
Specific plan that we have in place is, number one, is the protocols from airlines, the airport. We work closely with the KAA. And then you come to the tour operators, you come to the hotels. We've invested big time. We've done all the markings. We are ready. Staff have been trained. And we've decided to partner with world-renowned names, because people believe in, international bodies like SGS, Bureau Veritas, so that we assure anybody coming in, whether you're international, whether you're domestic, whether you're regional, that if you come to my hotel, you come to my restaurant, you should feel that you're safe. So that's very, very crucial. Because if you don't do that, it does not matter how much you advertise. And by the way, this is not the time for hard sell. You come to Kenya, you're wasting your money. It doesn't help. Okay? So first things first is to conform to WHO. That's one of the things government has done very well by announcing the numbers on a single day, because everything, transparency is key. Source market, international market, will be asking WHO, what ratings are you giving Kenya? WHO will come and say, you know what, Kenya has been transparent, and we have the numbers, and these are the measures they've taken. So now, yes. Now, this number 2 is for the airspace to be opened. And we've pleaded, and we are pushing, and we're lobbying, and hopefully it happens, that the cessation in Nairobi and Mombasa has to be lifted. This is the 2 biggest cities in Kenya. I mean, economy revolves around 2 cities. If you've closed these 2 cities, it doesn't matter what else you do. For instance, Kwale has been opened. Kilifi has been opened.
Yep.
Its point, it doesn't help them. They can't even visit one another because you still have to go through Mombasa. Okay, so I think the basics now is to make sure that we protect ourselves. We continue
so you
sanitizing,
want the local airspace opened, or you want also the international airspace opened?
No, we want the local airspace to be opened immediately, and also, yes, we also want the international, because the international market are already asking. And the Middle Eastern carriers are already asking. Dubai is opening up for business already. People are asking. And not because we haven't done things, we haven't taken measures.
Yeah.
We've taken a lot of. You take a visit to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and you see the efforts they've made. Even check-in counters now have got glass counters that will protect the person on the other side and the passenger on this other side when you're checking. There are a lot of steps. Social distancing. All that has been done. In fact, even the taps have been changed so that you use the elbow one. So
but
that
the health experts, Hersey, the health experts who are advising the president the other day when he was announcing the measures will continue, said we are not yet there. We are not yet at a point where we could reopen even that travel within the country because of the risk of increased community transmission. And then now, international travel, it even brings a whole different ballgame. He says we are not yet there. What makes you think that we are there yet?
I respect the experts, and we will continue to listen to them as well, but we equally can monitor what is happening elsewhere globally. Number one, the testing that we are doing, I'll simply say it is not enough testing. 90 days down the line, 100,000 in a population of 45 million is not a good representative of where we are. But it also gives me a lot of hope when I see 600 people, was it 6,000 people, being tested in a single day in Nyandarua, and not a single one turning out positive. That gives me hope and says, you know what, yes, we are at least getting somewhere. That is key. But the biggest measure for us is also deaths, the mortality rate. The mortality rate, for some reason, has been very low in Africa, in Kenya, and many places. So since the mortality rate is low, they need to study. The same scientists and the same experts need to find out what is it that is happening to us. That's why we are not probably registering all these deaths. Now, closing the airspace doesn't help much because the virus is already here with us anyway. And one of the conditions we are placing is that before you come to Kenya, get your COVID-19 certificate. You've been tested at least 7 days before, then you can fly here. Okay? Now, if that has happened, you tell me, is there any further risk? Somebody coming in from the UK, somebody coming in from the US or whatever coming here, yet we already have the virus, and you're not testing these people, walking free in Kibera, walking free in Isli, walking free here in Old Town on Mombasa.
So I hear you saying, Mohammed, that with the way things are, the way things have changed over the last 3 months, and the way things are now, I hear you saying that there really is no need for a further delay in opening up.
Absolutely. I'll say without any doubt that it is time now to open up our skies. We need to start opening up the economy. You cannot take this thing any further because without economy, you cannot run any such a system. Government collects its revenue through taxes. You know, it saddens me when I see Council of Governors or MPs all saying, hey, we want what has been budgeted given to us, not a single cent lower, you know. The question is, where will government get money from? Businesses have all closed. We are making zero returns right now. The only return you may get is pay as you earn of the little salary that is being paid. So the reality is that government will not be able to collect enough. But of course, you cannot put economy before health. But now that we know so much about the virus, I think it's about time we open. And we have to continue doing what we've been doing. You know what? Simple things like washing your hands, hygiene levels, sanitation, mask. I think those are things that are not going to go away. Because even to deal with normal flu, I think wearing a mask is a fantastic. Now understand, when I travel to Thailand, I go to Cambodia, I go to China, when I look at these Oriental guys, they're always in masks. Now I understand why they do that.
Yeah. There's also the issue that you raised on what you considered unfair treatment of the restaurants, especially when they're told all their workers must be tested. This is a sentiment that has been shared by the Kenya Medical Association. We even spoke with the leading virologist, Professor Omwanzala, who said, look, let's stop wasting our time testing the hospital workers. So I hear you saying the same thing.
You know, it is pointless if you ask me. I may not be as an expert, but we read. We read and understand, and we can, Now, insisting and focusing purely on restaurants and hotels. You tell me, since when did the hotel and restaurant become the epicenter of the virus? You tell me. We are interacting in many other places. You go to any market center. Come here to Tononoka, Mombasa. Go to Wakulima Market in Nairobi. People are shoulder to shoulder. We're testing them to do business. Why are you insisting on hotels to be tested? And you're wasting kits. And you know what? The worst part is this: we have accepted for our staff to be tested.
Yep.
We have even paid for it.
Yep.
But there's simply no reagents. Not because they don't have them, but because also it's not available globally. There's a shortage.
Yep.
Now, why are you insisting for people to be tested and the reagents are not available? And here we are. Somebody doesn't have a temperature. Somebody is not really feeling unwell. Somebody doesn't present any of those whatever. And they have already protected themselves in case they're symptomatic or whatever. And you're still insisting this business cannot open. What we agree with government, though, is about alcohol management.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you start opening up alcohol, and anything anything after 10 p.m., yep, and remember even the liquor license says 11 o'clock. But in Kenya, fact is, we've abused alcohol. People drink all the way till morning. And the moment you overdo it, then mask is no longer an issue. You can start doing many other things, and that could be a problem. Yes, there I agree with them. But surely, a high street restaurant opening and serving you a meal, and after all, where do you expect Nairobians who are now opening up and coming back to their business? Where will they eat? Mombasa likewise. Where will they eat? Restaurant business, it's part of the economy. And let's not be too hard on ourselves. And I think some of these hurdles, honestly, don't make sense.
Mohammed, as we wind up this conversation, you've managed major hotels in this country, 5-star hotels and others. And you are looking at now how they are operating. Thinking post-COVID, when the whole business is reopened, what kind of impact is it going to have on the revenues that these establishments were generating before?
Eric, firstly, I would like to say, going forward, it's not even new normal. It's new abnormal. Because the revenues will drop big time. Globally, we've had 1.5 billion travelers. If we even get 700 million, let's say even in 2021, we will be very lucky. People are very worried where to go. Travel is going to be very expensive. Now, some of the countries that are opening, for instance, are saying, look here, you cannot even take more than 50% of your occupancy in a hotel. What that means, any hotel today, for you to break even, you have to do 60-70% occupancy. If you tell me 50%, you're as good as closed. You're worse than a charity. Airlines, and you start insisting on a free sit in between, then that means you're flying less than 60%. Yet you're supposed to break even on your load on something like 80% and above. You're virtually as good as keeping that aircraft, on tarmac. Now, the coming back to revenues is going to be very difficult. But is there light at the end of the tunnel? Yes. Because once we put up all these protocols globally, we have the same guidelines that is in line with Federation of Tour Operators, is in line with World WHO, and name it. So we will start coming back slowly. But it will not take us less than 2 years. It's a long process and it's going to be painful. It's quite forget about hotels, many businesses will fold. That's a reality. Some will die, some will merge. But the measures you're going to place as well is going to reduce the beauty of running a hotel. What is a hotel, Eric? A hotel is where you come to have fun. A hotel is where you come to socialize. But COVID is telling us social distancing. You can't come close. You cannot have a crowd. You cannot, that beautiful buffet you're used to, where you come in and you eat with your eyes first and eventually choose what you want, will all not be there because we are reducing the touch points. That serving spoon that's going to be touched by 200 people cannot be possible because that becomes, a place where the virus will spread. Unfortunately, a lot will change until, this virus, hopefully, we get a vaccine or we get a treatment. But you know what? We cannot continue living in fear. Yeah? The fact that we've remained alive today means that, yep, we can manage and we can, but we cannot throw caution to the wind and say, you know what, it's now over. Government has opened Nairobi, has opened Mombasa, we party. No way. In fact, the battle has just begun.
Okay.
We need to continue wearing masks. We need to continue sanitizing. I think Kenya, for the first time, sanitization level. Suddenly we found water from I don't know where. Everywhere there's water now. Everybody is washing their hands, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
Something else I also want to thank government very, very quickly is about the 2 billion that has been given towards conservation. And I think that's one of the things that you had asked me earlier. It's very important that we conserve our wildlife. Today, the place that has been hit most is the national parks. The hotels are also closed. The rangers who take care of these animals are no longer employed, and some of them are on half salary or unpaid salary. Then it means poaching can easily come back. Firstly, you start getting bushmeat. People have to fend for themselves. Then number two, then they start getting creative. They start targeting the elephants and the big, the big game, which is not good. So you may recover and you start coming back only to discover that you have no wildlife. It's all gone. The other day you saw somewhere in Garissa, a whole giraffe has been, cut into pieces. Those are the things we need to change and make sure that these scouts and these rangers are paid. And we are happy that the Minister for Tourism and also the government have allocated some 2 billion actually 1 billion to take care of these 5,000, 6,000 rangers across the country. We have 126 conservancies. Many people don't know that more wildlife is spread in non-government controlled parks because animals don't know boundaries. I mean, they do not know that, hey, now I'm outside a conservation area. Okay? So it's very important that we do that, and hopefully by the time we are coming back, we still have our wildlife intact, which is our heritage.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking to us today, Mohammed.
Always a pleasure.
Have a good day. Mohammed Hersi is the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. We wish you a good day in Mombasa and say hello to everybody. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Taking a look at traffic at 20 minutes to 9. This conversation continues. Join the conversation now, 0719-012-600. So we've got two things that we are tackling here in this hour. We are talking about the Senate and Anne Waiguru's impeachment, and we are also talking about the revival of the tourism sector. Good morning.
All right, looking at traffic this morning, how have things changed over the last few? Well, not much actually. Today is not a bad day concerning traffic. Things that we expected to be are not the case. Mombasa Road, Ngong Road, just be patient. Where we saw an issue earlier on, just be a little bit patient to be able to get out of it without too much of a headache. And it's clear as you get down further past the junction. On Thika Road, then getting in and out of the CBD, it was causing a bit of a headache earlier, but that seems to have cleared up more or less. The little bit of a bottleneck that you see on Mombasa Road, right around Cabanas, that'll open up quickly enough soon today, so it's not too bad of a day. In case it does get any worse where you are, let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter, and we can spread the word.
Conversation. We're in Nairobi 94.4. We're in Malindi 97.7. Nyeri 90.9, 96.7 in Eldoret, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa. www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. 0719-012-600 is the number to call in. In the room this week is Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Molimu.
This week.
Mwalimu Waduro.
This week. Things may change, you think?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
Very true.
Yeah. So, start with the Waiguru impeachment.
You know, this standard or the process that the Senate has put in force and which they've defended is something that is going to be tested in the days to come. Because if I'm to go by what the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission are doing and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, there are very many governors who are going to appear before this particular body.
Yep.
And that's why I'm saying it will be tested. You know, if I'm to go by the impeachment of Wambora, the governor of Embu, it wasn't once. That matter did not go to the Senate once. So if indeed Governor Waiguru is acquitted by the Senate, I see the MCAs taking the matter up again. From what I've heard and from what I've observed, I don't think they're just going to sort of like sit back and let go and say it's okay.
This is okay.
No,
We accept the verdict.
they are going to find another avenue of bringing that matter up. Yes. So this matter will end with the Senate if the Senate finds the accusations of the MCAs to be appropriate. If and they side with them. If they do not, then this matter is going to be with us for quite some time.
Do you think the Senate, this step, because it's a two-step impeachment process, start from the county assembly and then you go to the Senate. Do you think this Senate step was is the best way to actually go?
I personally...
Should it be? Because look at it this way. It starts at the political process at the county assembly.
Yes.
Right? Then you're going to a higher political process, sort of a national political process in the Senate.
Yes.
And the Senate's role is the protection of counties and ensuring that the devolution is protected in all ways, that there is no interference of the operations of devolution. But it is a political process. And like what we are seeing now, what we've seen before, is there's a lot of jostling on political grounds rather than on merit of the case being brought before them. Then does it really make sense for us to have that process going to a Senate? Should it not go to a separate, can't we think of a different way of getting this done?
You know, I think everything revolves around what the Constitution says, what the standing orders in the Senate require them to do. If it's just procedure, something will actually give if procedure isn't followed. Even this particular case, if somebody could prove that the MCAs did not follow laid down procedure for such matters, then this matter will fizzle out. They'll tell them, no, chief, please go back and
get your things in order.
Yes, but meanwhile, let the good lady continue as governor. But these MCAs did not seem or appear to have let anything slip. They took care of every single detail you could think of.
Well, let's see when they bring in the evidence, because even at the assembly they did not adduce any evidence. It was just reading and saying this is what we have.
True.
So let's see when they bring the evidence before the Senate, whether they have any documentary evidence. Like
they said they did.
The MCA was saying we have all this evidence, we have it on paper, we've got the paper trail. Let's see what they bring to the Senate.
It would be quite foolhardy of them to speak in the manner in which they did at that level, where she was actually impeached, then without any kind of backup towards the things that they were saying. I would see that it would be a waste of time, an exercise in futility, without any kind of adequate backup. Because like CT is saying, they went as far as to make sure that the legality of the process that they were entering into was sound. It was proved.
So they said.
Well, I mean, the court.
But it went to court.
It went to court, and the court answered and said that there's nothing actually wrong with what they're doing.
Yes.
And even the person who was countering what they did also went to court, and the court gave the same answer and said that actually there's nothing wrong with what they were doing. So they went as far as to make sure that it was proved. So now, for them to go as tight with such a process, and then for them to come before the Senate without any evidence,
empty-handed,
it would be quite stupid,
it seems
for lack of a better word at this point.
It seems unlikely that they'll come in empty-handed.
Quite unlikely.
No, they won't. They won't, because they themselves would have known, given the process they followed, and given their own statements that they sought legal advice. These fellows clearly went into great bother.
And to go it's rare the world over that you would go to great bother for something that you did not.
You know very well at some point it's going to be thrown out.
Come on.
Why?
First of all, and then secondly, to go to that extent for something that they didn't really believe in, for whatever reason. The foundation of that belief, regardless whether you felt slighted by the individual.
MCAs were slighted by their governor. It went to the Senate. They had nothing. It was a very easy vote at the Senate when the senators basically decided, you know what?
But what was it backed by?
Nothing.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
That's what we're saying. Now,
Taita Taveta's MCAs did not have anything to back their accusations against
Taita
the government.
Taveta MCAs did not have a clear-sounding case like
what we are seeing
the
here
MCAs in Kirinyaga. They did not. Even a layman like myself listened and said, where do these guys think they're going with this thing? Because I dislike you, I think of everything that I may not like about it, and I think that is evidence to get you out.
Yeah,
no?
Throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at you because I just want to speak. I don't think so. But in this case, it was clear what their resolve was from the very beginning, and backed up by sentiment. That is all right. If it is because you want to feel, if you want to feel slighted, that's okay. But in this case, they did not talk about their emotional issues. They talked about things that they saw happening within the county, and we asked one of them here, and we said,
the one who proposed the motion, actually, yes.
Give us an example of what you're talking about. You say that, one example, you say that trips were taken and trips did not happen. And so we asked, was there a refund of such? No. In a system that is public, you may go into the system and find such documents, and we went and we did not find. And that's just one example of the many other things that we have. Now, why go through the lengths to make sure that you have this information if it's not something that you're going to pursue until the end? Why?
It's unlikely, right?
Highly unlikely.
Now, it will bring me back to the question of, is the Senate the best place to take such a case? Zachary is calling in from Nakuru. Good morning, Zachary.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How are you?
You can always count on me.
Good stuff.
I'm happy that now Mwalimu is officially Mwalimu. So, and he's a good guy.
Yes.
Now, very quickly, let me take you back to 2017 when we were doing the campaign. And for the record, let me say that I voted in Kiambu. And during the height of the campaigns, it happened that I needed to buy some materials from a nearby shopping center. And of course, I summoned the services of a border guy. Yeah? And along the way, we were told that the Kapo's helicopter had been sighted landing in the same shopping center that we were heading to. And therefore, there was this frenzy of so many people on the road wanting to get there. Do you know what they were going to do?
To collect.
They were going to correct the whatever, the Kishukaris, the Pashukas, the Shukas are the rest of there.
Yep.
And the border guy insisted that, now there is a kill, and you are only one customer, I must add two. Okay? And I told him, no. A border is only supposed to carry one. And in fact, they insisted. And by the time you are arguing, at my back there were two women, okay? Very huge women, yeah? And they said, if you don't want us to go through you, all right.
You leave, we go.
Yeah, and we are going to pay 100.
Okay.
We normally pay 50 shillings, okay?
Okay.
And of course, now it was me against now so they defeated me. So I agreed. And at the back of my mind, I said, okay, why don't I interrogate these women? Why are you going there to pay? Why should you take somebody's money? Huh? And did you know the answer was given? We have to eat that money. And then I asked them, are you really sure that you are going to vote in with Akafogo? They told me no. Okay, whom are you going to vote? We are going to vote the alternative, who is Waitito. And then I asked them, do you know Waitito? Do you know about his history? No, but we are the one we are going to vote to vote in. And in fact, we reached there. Even the border guy went and queued the owner of the hardware that they had was going to. He was also in the queue, so I had to wait.
So you also joined the queue?
No. Me, I watched from afar. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
And then
Anyway, what's the point? What's the point of the story?
the point is this, yeah. I told them, me, I'm not going to take Mr. Kafogo's money, but I'm going to vote for him. Given the two choices, the two prominent choices, Waikito, Eddie, Kafogo, I'm going to vote in Kafogo because I have Waikito's history and he is not my kind of candidate. At the same time, now let me come to the point, yeah. In Kirinyaga, where there is now fire, yeah. People are saying we want our leave. We want our leave. Now let's listen this. Anybody who is a voter in Kenya should use his brain and head and let Waiguru be, because they said, okay, we are going to vote him. We don't care what he has done, whose money he has taken away.
They made their bed.
They made their bed. Let them live with it now. Okay? And they might do something very quickly. In our culture, in our Kikuyu culture, we say this, yeah? If Mama Waithera, I married her, yeah? She turns out to be a witch, a bitch, a whatever. Everybody in my family tells me, your wife is this, your wife is this. The final answer lies within me. I will tell them, okay, I know she is this, I know she is this, I know she is this, but I love her. Are you going to have a good day, my friend?
We are going to have a good day. Are you?
Thank you. I am.
Very good. Have a good day, Zachary. Kirinyaga people made their bed, let them lie in it. This is basically what Zachary is saying. Okay, it's your decision, but come on. That's why they also elected an assembly to be a check and balance to the executive. And we are looking at the process and how it has gone. At 8 minutes to 9 o'clock, 0719-012-600, what do you think is going to happen in this particular process of the impeachment of Governor Anne Waiguru? C.T. Muga and Nduoko are clear in their minds that the assembly is going to come with watertight evidence against the governor. Now, let's go to the next step. With the kind of senators and the kind of debate that we saw in the Senate yesterday, do you expect that watertight evidence to matter at all? Before you answer that question, CT, whether you expect the evidence adduced by the County Assembly of Kirinyaga to matter at all in the proceedings of the Senate, let's hear from Kariuki, Wakulima Market, Nakuru. Kariuki, good morning.
Good morning, you guys. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
I want to comment a little bit about the Waiguru case.
Yep.
I would like to say this. All these, you are blaming the senators or anybody else. Maybe who is being maybe against Waiguru. But what there is here is that the final say is with the current dictator. Let me say that simply. Don't disturb even senators. They know what they are doing. They have been told to do it. So no option. No judgment there. It is upon the people of Kirinyaga to stand and say what they want to say. If at all they want their wishes to be fulfilled in terms of development and any other thing that is disturbing them. But the case of senators is a case already decided, my dear.
Elsewhere.
The current dictator. It's over already. There's nothing we expect from him. From those guys. Nothing. Yeah. That's the reason why you have seen them deciding to go to select committee way rather than the committee of the whole house.
Why are you so sure, Mr. Kariuki?
My friend, yeah?
Yes.
There's so much beyond maybe what you are thinking. We know a lot about the situation of Waiguru and the current dictator. You know what is happening. It's a long story, but we don't want to expose it now. Let's wait because the die is cast already. you know a lot about them.
Okay,
My
karaoke.
friend.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Answer the question, CT.
My answer is actually this. You know, something greater is actually happening here. All these systems that we keep speaking of are actually being tested. The T2 case, it was tested. We say, okay, plenary, this one now, committee, okay, let's see how they handle it. We haven't had many cases being brought before Senate. We've had rumblings, we've had a few attempts of MCAs trying to impeach their governor. The truth of the matter is this. The more cases we have, the better it is that this system will be tested. Whether it is the system within the county level, whether it is the system at the Senate level. Because one, the check and balance role that the county assembly has will now be put in force.
Yeah.
And other counties around the country will actually see. So instead of just complaining, you will understand that there's something you actually can do.
The bar is being raised.
It's being raised, and we are
Every
seeing
new
it being
process.
raised. And the Senate has an opportunity to show us how impartial as they claim they really are, they are. So we will wait and see this process, and then we'll make our judgment.
That's the thing, and I think perception then will play a major role here because, however, going in, it seems that battle lines were already drawn going forward, and again, perception is the thing. People's perception then will be formed around what people will say. And the obvious sides that have been taken. So if I have a perception that this individual is going to sail through because, again, it looks like she's a friend of the establishment, or she will sail through or not sail through because there are people who have a point to prove on the other side, this is going to be used to fuel all of this, regardless of however we choose to look at it.
In 2017, when the matter of the election went before the Supreme Court, many Kenyans figured, foregone conclusion.
It's done.
Why are we even bothering? So when the Supreme Court said, we're nullifying this, there was a
bit of a shock.
I think even those who were baying for some kind of blood or for some kind of were actually taken aback, like, wait a minute.
The petitioners themselves were shocked.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, wow, this is the way in which the judgment actually went.
Yes, exactly.
We weren't expecting this one.
And why is that? Because our experience from the previous petition of this sort had gone one way, and yet people felt, but there was evidence to show this. The Supreme Court didn't quite agree with them on that matter. So in this instance, I said, goodness.
Wow.
There was a really huge wow. So the Senate are facing something similar. It's just that our elections come every 5 years, but this one, they are going to have governors before them before they can even say Jack Robinson.
Yeah, more and more are coming.
More and more are coming.
Kitui, something is already brewing against Governor Charity Ngilu, and we'll see whether it comes, whether it goes to the Assembly, whether it comes to the Senate. Today's proverb has come to the top of the hour.
Akili ni mali.
And this one is different from the other Akili one.
I'm not adding the Nywele bit. Someone wants to add the Nywele bit, let them. Akili ni mali.
Bas. Bas. It's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's coming up to 9 o'clock. Remember, you can watch this show every morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on www.spicefm.co.ke. You can also watch our live stream on Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter and YouTube, Spice FM KE. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Okay, looking at parts of Mombasa Road this morning where it seems to just be a little bit clogged up, unfortunately. Thika Road towards Nairobi, CBD, the traffic is slow from the NYS footbridge. The service lane, however, is clear. Have yourselves a safe day as you're trying to get in and out of the CBD. It's not too terrible from what we see right now. Mombasa Road, the little parts that we expect to be this way are just that way, and it won't be too bad. Langata Road, it seems that the police have actually resumed duty on Langata Road. They've not been there for a while because there hasn't been much traffic. But that has changed. It's moving like a slug right around Capital Centre, which means that things are back to normal wherever you look at it today. On Mombasa Road, Thika Road, Langata Road, coming out of Westlands. That's the traffic. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter if you see something else out of the ordinary.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room,
and the
a place for
continue this morning wherever you're tuned in from, online and otherwise. We continue looking at matters that affect us here in the country or around the continent, and one of those issues definitely is the wheels of justice and how they turn for children. We just got off a week long of celebrations or commemorations of the Day of the African Child, and one of those key messages is how friendly the system is towards children. And we want to see how that was established many, many years ago, where children in South Africa marched and looked at rights for education. And during this march or during this protest, quite a number of these children were killed, and then rose the conversation about what are we really going to do to make sure these children are protected. And in 1991, where the OAU, when it still was there, came up with a number of resolutions and said, you know what, this is something that we need to actually take into consideration to make sure that when we're looking at justice for children who under the age of 18 cannot be, deemed as, obviously will not be deemed as adults, how are we going to make sure that they're actually protected? And then this came about, the Day of the African Child #1, which was then a week of real focus at what resolutions would be reached, and thereafter using the rest of the year to make sure that these resolutions by country were really, really looked at, promoted, and then entrenched in law. In Kenya, we've seen that the Children's Act, looking at it to go beyond just an act now, and actually having it as pegged onto the constitution so that it's part of the country's framework. This year, it's been looking at making sure that the justice system is actually friendly towards children. And when it comes to justice, legality of certain cases, unfortunately, we see quite a lot going on. Children having to deal with sexual abuse, having to deal with home-based violence, having to deal with all manner of things like early childhood marriage and rape and pregnancy, across board. And so this year, the focus has been to make sure that the justice system is actually friendly moving forward. And how has that been? Is it really possible? Is it really achievable in this country? This morning, we're going to have that conversation, obviously. We're joined on the line by Lady Justice Teresia Maveka of the Children's Court, and she's going to be having that conversation with us. Already on the line. Good morning, Justice Maveka.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you. In the room this morning with Eric Latif and Siti Muga as we look at some of those issues. So thank you for joining us in the Situation Room this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So many things. If we can jump right into the conversation, so many things happening, but maybe we can start, just on the legal side of it before we go into some of the nitty-gritty. When we say that we are trying to look towards a system that's more friendly towards children, what exactly do we mean?
Thank you very much. I think we have to start by asking ourselves, what is this system? When we talk about a child-friendly justice system, what is the system? And the system is made up of course, the legal framework. You have actually spoken a bit about it. We have our constitution, which takes into consideration the international instruments that we have ratified. That includes the African Charter on the rights and welfare of the child, and the UNCRC, that's the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And those instruments create institutions, and those institutions have infrastructure and people, and all of them are brought together when you talk about the child by the child. And these institutions, as you may be aware, don't just start from the judiciary. They start from the family. The family is the focal point of justice for a child. Starts from there, moves into now the other system, the police, the courts, the probation department, the children's department, the prisons, and NGOs, and of course the media. We can't leave you out of that. So it's a whole system that is there. So when we talk about whether this is possible, then we must look at how each player does their job, or how what they bring on board to deal with this child. So my answer would be that it's possible to have a child-friendly justice system in this country. It is possible. There may be challenges, and maybe those are the things we'll dive into along the way.
Yeah.
But my view, I'm very, I'm a believer that it is possible.
I mean, for the longest time, and even up till now, perhaps this could be the reason why we see children being treated the way that they are treated, is that children are regarded as property of their parents, right?
Yes.
What they would think, how they would act, what they eat, what they would, the way they dress, where they go to school is the decision of their parents, if they go to school, in some cases, in quite a lot of instances. So if you come off of that, then you're dealing with a mindset already. You're dealing with a tradition, a culture, a way of doing things. How then do we incorporate legality and justice into a culture, or divorce a culture of doing things now when you want to introduce justice?
Thank you very much. You see, the child belongs to the parent, but the parent acts within the law. One of the things about having law is that the law comes right into our homes, and particularly when something goes wrong. Everything a family is regulated by the law, so that a parent may say, this is my child, but there is a law that says how you are going to deal with this child whenever you're dealing with that child. For example, you mentioned education, and you said if the child goes to school, but we have a law that says every child has a right to education, and therefore this parent is required to ensure their child goes to school. The responsibility of the state is to ensure that there's an education system in place, so that if the parent fails to take the child to school, then that parent can be held accountable by that law that requires him to ensure the child goes to school. So as much as the child is born and raised by a parent, but there are parameters of the law. The law gets into the home and regulates the way the parent deals with that child. Because the child has rights which will be enforced by the state if the parent does not do their job. I hope
Yes,
I've made that a bit clear. Yes.
But when we speak of a child-friendly justice system, what is this? What is it that we define as child-friendly?
Thank you. The first thing is to recognize who is a child. Maybe if I was sitting there, I would ask you if you've ever been to a court. Have you?
Yes, I have.
Yes,
I have. You can imagine. I don't know how you
not
felt.
in the dock, but I have been in the court.
Okay, even the court area. Some years ago, even I, working in the system, one time appeared before a colleague to give evidence years ago in a matter that was I was required to do so, and it was not friendly to me as an adult, even as a player within the same system. But things have changed along the way. But what is it that we say? First, it's who is this child? It is somebody who is defined by our law as any person below the age of 18. Now, when we say the system needs to be friendly, it is where we are able to be aware that the person we are dealing with is a child, is not mature, is not developed at the level of the people in the room, that these things are strange to them, that they need to understand what is happening. They need to be explained in a way that they understand, at their level, that everyone handling this person needs to be aware that this is actually a child, someone who may not be at the same level as everyone else in the room, and remembering that there are certain minimums that are in the law as to what we need to do. For example, just the practicalities of it. For example, if a child is going to come into a courtroom, it is expected, if you were to do it right, that before they come, someone will have brought them there and told them, look, when you come in here, there'll be a judge or magistrate sitting there. There'll be a prosecutor sitting here. You will be sitting there. There'll be an advocate. There'll be someone explaining to you how you are going to behave in this place, and so that when they actually come into that courtroom, they are able to acclimatize themselves to that.
Yep.
But that is just the practical bit of it. But when we talk about the system being friendly, we have to start with the people who are in that system, the infrastructure that is in that. Are these people aware of the kind of person they are dealing with? And that goes to training, for example. If I'm a magistrate or a judge, do I understand I'm dealing with a child? If I am a police officer, do I understand that I am dealing with a child? If I'm a prison officer in the Boston institution, do I understand that? Am I aware, not just seeing the person, but am I aware of exactly what my role is in dealing with this child? As a government, when we are putting up these institutions, say for example the remand homes for children, are we consciously aware that that is a place we are going to hold children? What programs are we putting there for this child who, for example, stole something or hit another one or killed a person? Do we have, are we putting in something there to address the needs of that child? So it is actually every person there, every infrastructure, every system that is there, because people, as you sit there, that our legal framework is very good. It is at international standard.
Yeah.
But the issue is putting it in place and ensuring that every institution is aware.
Now,
and
secondly, when you hear something like that, okay, go ahead.
Before I leave that point,
yes,
whether we have put money, I'm talking about putting money in those institutions that is directly addressed to providing justice for the child. So those are the issues, yes.
My follow-up question on that is, okay,
yes.
As you explain it, it sounds pretty straightforward. That for an adult, and you're thinking that it's a child who's going to come here, you will, even if previously we hadn't done this, when we started talking about these reforms, those are reforms that would be implemented, and within a short period of time, let's say even a year or two, would have significant progress in this. However, and I haven't been in your court, I don't know, but just from hearing, from what we hear from out here, this has not yet reached that level where we expect that it should be reaching. We don't see this kind of orientation of minors being taken to court before. We don't see the treatment by the correctional officers. We don't see the same treatment by police officers. We don't see treatment by court, by even magistrates and other judges. Why would it take so long to do something so, it's just snapping a finger?
Thank you very much. As you mentioned at the beginning of your question, is that there are actually reforms. Things were bad at some point, but there are reforms going on. You are aware that the judiciary put in place a task force. I hope you are aware of that. A task force, a special task force on issues of children with regard to access to justice. It is housed under the National Council on Administration of Justice. This task force is made up of all the players in the justice system and is chaired by the Honorable Justice Martha Koome, Judge of the Court of Appeal. And this task force actually went out to look at the things we are talking about now. And I can tell you that all the things you are saying, the bad things, let me just use one word to say the bad things, the negative things you've talked about, we are not saying they are not there. They are there. And it was, like ourselves going out to see for ourselves the things we do badly on the ground. And those gaps are there. I'll give you an example. You go to say a remand home and find that children walk barefoot. Why? Because the government has not given money to run that institution. You get me? So that you have children there and they are there and they don't have shoes. And when you ask, you are told the budget, in fact, the AIE for this institution has not been given for the last so many quarters. So, and there are children who have committed offenses and for whom the law says they need to be taken there. You see? So those things are there. But what we did as we went round, because I happened to be a member of that task force, is the moment you identify something, it was like a three-pronged activity. You go to the ground, you'll find that this is a mistake, and it went together with a kind of awareness training where you bring all the court users together and actually interrogate why are we not dealing with the children the way we are supposed to do? And those members of the court users would actually come up and say, these are the gaps. So how are we going to address them? From our level. Okay? And the issues that could be addressed at that ground level were actually addressed, where one of the things would be maybe lack of collaboration among the stakeholders, among the court users of the children's court. And would leave the place knowing that these people are now together and they're going to continue having this conversation. The other thing that happened is that the issues that were for the high offices, let me use that word, say for the CS in the ministry, for the Chief Justice, those issues were presented to those people so that those officers would be able to see how do we now move forward with these particular issues. So the conversation is not starting today with the Day of the African Child.
Yeah.
We noticed some time ago that there is a problem in the implementation of the law, and a reform process started. So as we talk now, this week has been a reminder, a big thing, an international day, reminding everybody that we actually need to have this conversation. But it has been an ongoing conversation among the stakeholders, that we are aware we are not doing the right thing, and therefore we need to start doing the right thing for children. And that is a push that is going even as we speak now.
Justice, I'm glad you have mentioned, the word process. You are part of this process, but
yes,
again,
I am.
Yes, you are, and a very important part of the process. And yet, before a child ever comes to you or to the system under which you actually work, there are other institutions, there are other circumstances in which they actually develop and grow.
Yes.
Now, where I'm going with what I'm trying to say is this. If, say, for instance, the police force are not educated or sensitized sufficiently in these matters to understand what these rights entail, if the community the child comes from are not sufficiently sensitized, then the work that you do there, one, you'll be overburdened by whatever it is that you handle when children come to you. But secondly, the system will not work. What is it that the government has put in place to ensure that this 360 approach towards the child is actually handled?
Thank you very much. You see, one of the things that we realized, I'll speak for the judiciary because that's where I spend all my life, all my time, and the other people we work with who are part of government within that system. What we realize is that no one agency can work alone. If the judiciary is doing very well, or the police are doing very well, and the other parts are not working well, the child will get hurt in the process. I think that is a given, that if the community is not aware of what's supposed to happen, if the police are not aware of what is supposed to happen, then something will give along the way. And when you ask what the government has put in place, I think I can only speak for what I know among the people we work with, and that is the court users committees. And like I said earlier, the court users committees are made up of all the people who deal with children or cases within the justice system. And I mentioned the agencies. One thing is that they sit together, brought together by under the National Council on Administration of Justice. They sit together, or we sit together, and look at these particular issues together and find solutions at the local level. Because without that collaboration, we cannot be able to work, to be able to give this service to the child. So that working together, I can say it is the one, the biggest success in my view, in terms of ensuring that everybody who handles a child can actually sit at the same table and say, today we don't have fuel to take this child to this institution. Who among us has fuel to fuel this vehicle to transport this child to that place? Are you getting me?
Yep.
Because the challenge we have is that we don't have a budget line that says this is money
specifically
for the justice system for children.
Yeah.
We don't have. And that is the biggest challenge for all of us. In fact, none of those institutions has money put somewhere saying this is money for the for justice for the children, you know. And for me, if you ask me, that is one of the greatest undoings in giving children.
Justice, if I hear you correctly, you are saying that in all our wonderful budgeting, the government has never put aside money for matters that concern the child with regards to the court system.
Accessing justice.
Not court system, but issues, you know, specifically issues of justice.
Yeah.
You see, for example, let me give you an example. When a child has been committed from a court, okay, to be escorted to an institution, to some place, you'll find, for example, the police station telling you, we do not have money to have this child taken to that place. What does that mean? I have made an order today for the child to be transported from point A to point B from this court. But because there's no funding, you know, there's no funding for that specific item, then this child ends up staying there, waiting for the day money will be found for this child to be taken to that
to be
place.
transported. And mainly because
so that's what
the
I'm
Boston
saying, so that
institution is far from the court.
For example, yes, what did you say?
I'm saying mainly because the Boston institution, for instance, will be far from the court. It's not like a court has a Boston institution nearby.
No. In fact, there are only 3 in the country.
There you go.
Yeah, there are only 3. The Boston institutions are only 3. There is one in Nairobi, there is one in Western Province, and there is one in Mombasa. You see? Even the remand homes, for example, when a child is commits an offense and the parents are not found quickly for them to stand surety for them or to raise their bond for them or to be handed over to their parents, they have to go to a remand home.
Yeah.
They are not everywhere. They are scattered all over. So you find that maybe a child is, for example, where I'm working now in Nakuru, the remand home that we have here holds children from Nyahururu, from Naivasha, from Molo, Eldama Ravine, and for Nakuru. So you can see if a child has a Narok. So if a child commits an offense in Narok and they need to be remanded in custody, they'll be remanded here at the remand home here.
Yeah.
Because there's no remand home where?
In Narok.
In Narok. There's no remand home in Naivasha. There's no remand home in Nyahururu. There's no remand home in Eldama Ravine.
And Eldama Ravine.
So how does that translate? That translates to delays. If that child is not collected, for example, by the officers to be taken to Narok on the day of the hearing of the case, what does that mean?
Push
that
the
day
date.
has passed, isn't it? So those are the things that we noticed, and we have put them in the right places so that changes can be brought in place, so that institutions can be put in place where they are near to children. Yesterday, I attended one of the celebrations, and the children were saying the problem sometimes is just delays. There was one who was speaking on NTV during one of those discussions. He said the issue is that maybe delays, and sometimes those delays are caused not because the court is not sitting, not because the officer does not want to, people don't want to testify, but because of those logistical problems. Serious logistical problem.
When you speak of the reforms that you've proposed and that have already started being worked on, are there milestones? Like, for instance, by saying that by this time we should no longer be having police officers saying we don't have money to transport a child to an institution.
Yes, because that's a very good question. In fact, our report, the report for the task force, was very well received. And the government institutions involved, everyone has embraced what is in that because we didn't just prepare a report. It was something that was happening as we went along. You know, like if we went, for example, to Coast Province, and we didn't just go there to ask people questions. The task force would go there, hold a training for the court users committee, meet them and find out what are the challenges. And then, in addition to that, now do what you would call a service week. Service week would be like, by the time we went, we would have all the pending children cases, all of them fixed for hearing during that particular week. And what did that mean? You bring together the police, probation officers, children officers, lawyers, prosecutors, even volunteer counselors, everyone. The court users committee would bring together all these people so that week they would try and deal with the children cases that have been pending. Because the backlog has been there. We admit there's been backlog. So we would go down to wherever we went as a task force during that time. That is what would happen. And the beauty of it is that the service week was declared, November every year was declared by the judiciary as a month for service week for dealing with any backlog that might have built up, with an encouragement that children matters be given priority. So what I'm saying is that when the task force was going around the country, those are the things that we were not just going to seek views. It was working. You go there, you have put in place all these things, because some of the infrastructure was already in place, like the CUC. So working with the CUC, you go down there, meet the people, have the cases done, have a training, discuss the challenges, and now get them out practically. Because we would sit in court, we would participate in these things. We would not just go there and ask for views, but actually working with the court users, the magistrates, the prosecutors, the police, the investigators, and everybody else. So what I'm saying is that the challenges that were found, things are in place. We were carrying out our TORs, but at the same time, almost implementing some of the things that we found needed to be done.
Right. Does it, as we look at how things may or may not have progressed over time, and with these reminders that we are looking at now, okay, fine, we know that every June 16th will come around and there will be reminders put out. Are we going to get to a time whereby we're not going to have to be dealing with these issues, and the reason being given is that there's no money? It seems to me that there must be another reason as to why these things are not working. Like some of the things you talk about, something as basic as children not having shoes, whether they're in a remand center or not. Somebody not following this process, which has been instituted by law, because there's no money for the fuel for the vehicle. Somebody's not able to do something because there's no money to fill a particular impress. Are we going to get away from this excuse? Because it just seems like it's one that's given all the time.
I think, this is my understanding of the situation. Having put together the recommendations we made, and having been on the ground, and having met all the people who are involved, one of the things you find actually, money may not be the big thing when it comes to the actual implementation of things on the ground. Of course, the big picture requires money. You need money to run institutions. You need money to have trained personnel. You need money, for all these things, you need money. But one thing that you will realize, and if you go to the ground, you'll find this. For as long as the court users committees sit, they are actually able to find solutions to some of those small problems. Like I said, if police don't have money to fuel the car, another department may be able to say, okay, we will do this. Or an NGO who works in the area will be able to actually offer a certain service that is not there. You see? So somehow, for children, somebody somewhere will find a solution will be found. The only thing is that hopefully that with time, a budget line that will be put in place to actually deal with issues of justice for children somewhere. For example, let me just give you a small example that training, if you ask me, training and acquiring skills and knowledge and expertise in their area of handling children is a very important thing. But all these players, maybe it's one or two of the players who get a specific training on how to handle children. You mentioned the police, for example, that they may get a session during their training on issues of children's rights. But the nitty-gritties of handling a child, how do you arrest a child, how do you deal, all those things, maybe nobody gets that training. Do they have counselors? For example, you'd expect maybe they would have someone at the police station, someone who would be able, like say a victim of child defilement arrives at the station. is there an officer trained specifically on how to take the report from this child?
Yeah.
To actually speak to this child in a way that they don't feel, So people
Further
have to use
victimized.
like their what they know as human beings because that training is there. Even as a magistrate, I can tell you, when I was appointed as a children magistrate, I know the law, but it's not the same when you sit in court to hear a child giving evidence.
Right.
You get me? Yes.
So it sounds
So
like
that training,
it's
one
an
of the
attitude
one of the
problem. It's
things,
an attitude issue then, Justice. It's an attitude issue from the very beginning, from the beginning of our system. We assume that because you've dealt with children before, you're just handling children. Because you have younger siblings, you have been to school, you have dealt with children, then you should be able to handle children. And when you talk about training, then people wonder, training on dealing with children. What do you mean training? What do you need training to talk to a child?
In fact, now that you mentioned, that is one of the TORs that was put for the task force to actually make recommendations on a minimum training for persons who handle children, and it is there. The recommendation was made. But some time ago, about 10 years ago, there was a program that was a collaboration between our government and the government of Japan, JICA program on, it was called the CCPO, Child Care and Protection Officers Training, where you would put in the same classroom a magistrate, a police officer, a prison officer, a probation officer, a children officer. You can imagine that scenario. And they would sit in the same classroom and learn the same things on how to deal with children. And I can tell you, for the 4 or 5 years this program ran, the people who went through that training, if you meet them today, they are very different people. Because that person knows what to expect from the magistrate. The magistrate knows what to expect from the police officer. They know that it is a system and it needs to work in a certain way, because the only thing that brings them together is the child, and they all have an obligation to treat the child with certain standards, from the point they enter the system to the point they exit, and even when they're in the institution. So when I talk about training, it is something that we know is valuable. But when that support from JICA went, then we were not able to support the program as the government. We did it, I think, for a year or two, and
that was
died.
the end.
But right now, the task force recommended the revival of that training, because when we put, because we are all brought together by the child, officers in any of these institutions dealing with children together, then you see a very big difference in the way they deal with children. The attitude goes away, and it is replaced by a professional attitude towards dealing with a child. So that is one of the gaps. That would need to be addressed. So when you talk about changes, I think for me, I see that if that is put in place, then you can start seeing a difference.
Let's take a short break and take a look at weather and traffic, and then we continue with this conversation. We are speaking with the Honorable Lady Justice Teresia Madeka of the Nakuru High Court. She is one who's very passionate about the welfare of children, especially in accessing justice. She serves in the Children's Court. She has been on this docket for many years, and, well, she's giving us a lot of insight into this. It's 25 to 10. Do weather, and then we do traffic, and this conversation continues. Good morning.
All right, let's take a screenshot of what the weather looks like in certain parts of the country this morning. In Nairobi, it's likely to be partly cloudy through most of the day with highs of 21 and lows of 12. Okay, well, let's move it on west. And in Nakuru, highs of 22, showers likely to go through most parts of the country today. All right, and at the coast in Malindi and Mombasa, we will see rain showers likely to have highs of 29 and lows of 25. All right, skip into East Africa there, where 23 is currently the situation, partly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 20. And Johannesburg, the forecast of snow has been given at this point, currently at 5, with an icy rain, highs of 10 and lows of -2. And finally, we'll wrap it up in Lagos for now, where it's clear skies at 26, highs of 28 and lows of 23, with a wet afternoon forecasted for the city. horrible accident on Kiambu Road a few minutes ago, right outside the DCI, and this has now caused quite a lot of traffic. Unfortunately, a fatal accident, and traffic outbound on Kiambu Road, then affecting Thika Road this morning. Mombasa Road is not so bad right now. It has seen the worst of it that this morning has to offer. And we'll see the bottleneck being on Thika Road until that is cleared out for now. Traffic seems to have dissipated in most other parts, so you should be able to get where you're going with no problem now. And this is what we see that's being dealt with now. Be careful, guys. Wherever it is that you're going, keep safe and arrive alive.
To 10, that is a situation and it's been the biggest conversation. Eric Lati, on the line. Lady Justice Teresia Matheka of the High Court, she has been telling us about issues of children accessing justice, and that's a conversation that we've been having.
Right. So, as we continue with that, just looking at what the sentiment would come out of many people as we think about this, Justice Matheka, is that.
Yes.
If there seems to be an issue with the system, if there seems to be an issue with the attitude, are we going to get to a point whereby things would at least be perceived to be flawless, and we're not going to have some of these issues that we are experiencing now?
What I know is that we cannot have a flawless system. As long as we have human beings in any place, we know that for a fact, but we can have a working system. We can have a system that is, alive and aware of its shortfalls, of aware of where the gaps are, and a system that is always trying or making the effort to deal with those gaps. I think, and that is there. That for sure, I know that time it is now actually, because one of the things that happened is when we got our constitution, and that the rights of the child were elevated to that level.
Yep.
They were put in Article 53. And although the Children's Act was way ahead of our constitution, because in the Children's Act we have a Bill of Rights for children. It was there way before the constitution came. The problem was in implementation. But the time is now, as far as I am concerned, because this is the time when everyone is, becoming very conscious of the fact that our children have a problem, and that we need to start getting very consciously aware of the fact that we need to put in place systems that will take care of those problems. Not dealing with them as you were saying earlier, that they are my children, and don't tell me what is my children. No, that they belong to all of us. That children, there is no property. Children belong to all of us, and until we are aware, and that we need to remove that from us, that they belong to all of us, because without them we don't have a tomorrow. We know that.
Yeah.
So a flawless system will not be there. But for as long as we have, as I said, members of that system or people in that system who are aware that the gap is here, the gap is here, the gap is here, and I have to do something to fill it, then that will be the proper system. And I know now is the time, because everybody, at least within the court users committee, as I said earlier, is very much alive to that. Not just where I am, but around the country, that we need to address those issues.
Right. If we switch things just a little bit, Justice Matheka, and now looking at issues, and we've seen a rise in this in the recent past, with all the other things that we've seen a rise in, is that now parties then going to court looking at the care of their children, and unfortunately in most cases using children as bait to then get the court to rule on their side.
Commoditization of children.
Right?
Yeah.
We've
that is
seen
such
the
a,
rise
anyway,
of such
that
cases.
is a fact, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, how is this handled? Is there an awareness on the side of justice that this is actually happening, and that parents, whether they're joined legally by marriage or any other way, whether they've come together on an agreement, then using children in this manner, what's the side of the government, of the law on this?
Okay. Let me just start by saying that one of the weaknesses we have in our justice system for children is that we don't have a welfare system in place. It's a fact, we don't have.
Yeah.
For example, let's start with a child who is out in the street. If we had a proper welfare system, there would be a rescue center where when a child has those issues, and we call them children in need of care and protection, ends up somewhere where the system will take care of them. So when two parents are having a problem, the law recognizes that those children immediately become children in need of care and protection. Immediately, it is provided for in the law. And the way it should go, let me give you now the ideal. The way the law looks at it is that the moment those parents begin fighting in court, that if we had that welfare system, now the other people would come in, say, for example, the Department of Children's Services, and start looking at the welfare of these children. What would be expected is that a file, as the parents are fighting in court, say, over divorce, whatever, a file would be opened separately for welfare, so that the court can be looking at how are these children still eating? Are they still going to school? Are they still, do they have psychological issues? That would be taken care of. Of course, there are courts where they try to do that, but like I said, the limitation is personnel to do that. So what happens is when these parents now begin to fight, the court is just faced with there are two adults here and there are children in this place. So how do I deal with this matter? I will ask a children officer, please go and do an assessment for me on the ground to see which of the parents or who can take care of these children. So the children officer will go and do a report and talk to neighbors or whoever and come back and say, I think from what I've learned or what I've gathered, my assessment is the children will be better off with so and so. But the law says both parents should have access, isn't it? Because the child has a right. Remember, we are talking about the child, No, it's not the parents. It's the child. The child has a right to have access to both parents.
To both parents.
Yes.
That's very interesting, Judge, that you say
that, because that is what we forget.
Things they're a bit different than they were, if you want to say, 10 years or 15 years ago, whereby if you just look at it now, a lot of parents, or even if it's single parents, feel that so long as they're there giving the child everything that they need, then it's okay.
The other parent.
That is where we lost it. That is where we lost it, because ukiangalia katiba, now let me speak in that Kiswahili that I like. Ukiangalia katiba yetu article 53, it says very clearly that regardless of whether the parents are married or not, can we start from there? Whether they are married or not, they have equal responsibility. And the child within the Children's Act has a right to access both parents. It's the right of not the right of the parent to access their child, the right of the child to access their parent. So if we start from looking at that point, we will never go wrong, because we will be saying what is in the best interest of this child. And that is what the Constitution tells us. It is not whether if the parent A has the money and what, or parent B does not have anything if they are left with the child. It is what is in the best interest of this child. It is not just food. If you look at the law, it is not just food and school and having things. It is about care and protection. And care and protection may not really require money. It is the presence of parents. We know that.
True.
And the example I always give is, you have people with mental disabilities. You will meet a woman with a mental disability carrying her baby on her back. they will never harm their child.
Yeah.
Now you've seen.
Yeah.
So two people who are normal in their heads, let me use that word with a lot of salt and Royco and other things. Two people come to court, they are fighting over. First, it is their issue. They are the ones who've broken up. The child has not broken up with them.
Yeah.
So that is where we should start. And actually the law puts, but you see, human beings, we complicate things. Somebody will run away with the children, will hide the children, will tell them your mother or your father is a witch or whatever. We've had those stories in court where somebody says, if you talk to your mother, you'll die. Or if you talk to your father, what will happen? We have those things. A child who a few months ago just knew that this is my mother and this is my father,
suddenly knows one is a monster.
A different way. Yes. So that is where we go wrong. And why are we having a challenge in the court? As I said, we have a gap. The welfare, we have a social protection department somewhere, but how does it function?
Yeah.
Because children who are in such a situation,
what would it take to have this welfare system in place?
Can I say something? Yesterday I saw in the media that Makueni County has the first gender recovery rescue for sex and gender-based violence victims. Did you see it? It was in the media. It was somewhere in the media. You saw it?
Yes.
For how long have we said we need shelters for women and children and even men who get beaten by other people?
Yeah.
We've said it forever, isn't it? But it has taken one county to wake up in the morning and say, our people are getting hurt because kuna watu who have mental issues who will actually hurt you.
Yeah.
So that person who comes crying, I'm suffering, we need to rescue them for a while as we sort out the person who is hurting them. It is the same in this country right now as we see those cases in court. Unless we wake up and say we actually need a system where we can rescue children like those from those parents for a while, as they sort out their issues, we are damaging these children.
As we conclude the conversation, Judge, let me bring us back to this issue of the commoditization and commercialization of children. We have seen this happen in very many places. People come up with children's homes. Yesterday, there was a story that came out of America of this U.S. missionary, Gregory Dow, who pleaded guilty to sexually abusing young girls at a Bomet orphanage. This matter had been tried to be addressed at various levels in Kenya. This particular orphanage, the children's officers, the police, judicial people. And then it goes to America, and this is where we start seeing wheels of justice moving. What is wrong here?
Okay, again, I will not say that something is wrong. It is something is missing. Something is missing. Why do children, first of all, end up in children's homes? Why? Why do we have in our system children homes? Because we don't have, run by individuals.
It's because
are you getting me?
The welfare thing is missing.
It doesn't exist.
Thank you very much. Because we do not have our own, as a government, that system I was telling you about. If they are there rescue centers, they are very few. But the CCIs, we call them charitable children institutions, are all over the country. How are they run? It is only recently that somebody somewhere thought that they need to be trained, they need to have, and that was themselves. I remember meeting them. They formed an umbrella organization. I think it's the Association of Charitable Children Institutions in Kenya. And they formed this association so that they can be able to train themselves, not serikali as training them, to be able to run those homes properly. But the question I've always asked myself, why do we need CCIs? Because we have a gap. When we have orphans being thrown out of homes, when my sister dies or my brother dies and I throw her children out of the home, now, where do I expect them to go?
Yeah.
And somebody decides, okay, I'll start this home, maybe in good faith, but along the way, of course, issues of money come along. You look for sponsors and things happen like that. Some homes don't even have anything. Others don't have food. They don't have, they have all. But they are doing a very good job in this country because we don't have our welfare system for children like those. I would say it does not exist.
Yeah.
Because if government had its own institutions, then we would be able to have children going there. Now, regulation of these institutions, there are rules and regulations. But supervision is supposed to be done by the Department of Children's Services. Do they have enough personnel to do that? Are they able to do that? The infrastructure for supervising these homes is within is set out in the Children's Act, but are they enabled to do it? Because they are supposed to be approved by the Department of Children's Services, inspected by the Department of Children's Services, and be able to see that these children are taken care of. As a court, I may be sitting in court somewhere in Nakuru here. The police bring me a child who was dropped at the police station last night, at the gate there last night, an infant. I don't have to take them. Either it's at the hospital, in the children's ward. How long can they keep the kid there? Then the next thing is to make an order to commit these children to a CCI.
Right.
Because they help us to give these children somewhere. So the problem is regulation, inspection, and, oversight. And remember, the government does not give them any support. They don't get any money from government. So somehow they run their own things. So bad things happen to our children because we leave them in the hands of these people, and we don't have a proper system for inspection, supervision, all those things. So when it comes to investigating these cases, who are your witnesses again?
The children.
Who are the witnesses? The same victims, the children.
Yep.
Who see this person as who? As their benefactor.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the vicious cycle?
Yeah, true.
So sometimes those cases are difficult because of that. But I'm not saying I would never approve. In fact, if it was possible, they'd be closed in a day, all of them. But you can't, because where will you take those kids?
It seems
and some actually don't have somewhere
to go. It seems
and relatives will not take them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Seems there's still a lot of work to be done, and as we often say in this room, the conversation then needs to continue, because
it must continue.
From then, hopefully, then some kind of action will be taken if we keep talking about it as opposed to sweeping it under the carpet.
But like we keep saying, we need to have we have a bill pending to be passed in Parliament that has reviewed the whole children's law, which has taken since 2018. It's pending there. We don't know where it is held up, but we need it to put in new, because of our constitution, the old act the current act did not have certain provisions that broaden the way we take care of our children. If this could be passed into law, I don't know where it may come out, but if it could be passed into law, it would actually assist institutions to do more, because you need a legal framework also to push government to do certain things, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
We need that.
It's true.
But all I want to say, because maybe time is running, is that everyone, I can assure you, people who are dealing with children are trying. They're actually trying to put these things in place, because nobody will want a child to come. If you sit in court or you see the police officers who also handle these children, if you're not trained, you'll deal with them the way you know, isn't it? So they try. Everyone is trying, but
we still need a boost.
If they implement also the recommendations we put in the task force report that was presented last year, I can assure you, even at the policy level, just policy level before we get the law, then you'll start seeing things moving. But like I told you, people are already doing things, because you will never let a child, if you are a human being,
you'll never let a child
suffer when you can do something about it.
Justice, Lady Justice Teresia Maveka, thank you so much for joining us in the room this morning and giving us some of these insights. It's unfortunate we have to say bye so early, because the conversation absolutely does need to continue.
All right.
But thank you so much for giving us the insights that you have today. Asante Sana, and as you continue work in Nakuru and around the country, it's only our hope that it does get better.
And for me, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that you, as Spice FM and whoever, you can continue the conversation and continue challenging us, because you can be the voice of the child, because children can't speak for themselves. They need you and me to speak for them and to say that this is missing and it needs to be done. And
challenge
finally,
accepted.
Yes, and finally, that you need to tell people that the achieving this child-friendly justice system is the responsibility of each one of us.
Yeah.
Each one of us, all of us together.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much.
Asante sana, and have a good day.
Fantastic.
You too.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
It's good to speak to an officer of the law who is so passionate about such matters, because we're talking about children now.
But she's handicapped.
True.
And
she can only go so far.
She's really, really handicapped.
this is the market.
Very little wiggle room does she have.
Very, very little. Very, very, very little. Because there's an entire ministry that is charged with ensuring that these things function. And when you hear that money hasn't reached some of these institutions, for a month.
Yes.
Budget has not been requested for. Money therefore was not appropriated. So money will never.
So you pause and you wonder, hey,
how?
Very interesting conversation. We'll continue this conversation some other time. As we conclude today's show, CT, Akili, and wealth.
Nimali, if you think you're looking for wealth that really lasts, wealth that surpasses even the realms of time.
Human understanding.
Akili.
Akili Nimali.
Yes.
This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for joining us today. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we have another conversation on various matters affecting this country. In the room signing off today is Mwalimu Andrew, CT Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. Monique will be here at 3 to 6, taking you home. Until then, sugar and spice and everything nice. Uninterrupted music right here on Spice FM. The likes of Tony Braxton and Brian Ice and The Cars and others, Dido as well. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.